Are you a brewhead? I'm a brewhead. Are you a brewhead? I'm a brewhead. Y'all are brewheads? Yeah, we brewheads. So pour a glass of craft beer, we can do this. Yeah.
What's good, y'all? This is C Certified Brewhead, and welcome to episode 104 of Beer Not the Shit, the podcast adjunct series. We are back after almost or a little over 2 months, actually. Summer break. The things got a little crazy. As you can tell, if you're watching right now, we're in a whole new set. I am in I moved house, moved back to Ontario, which, if anyone's moved, you already know it's a pretty ridiculous process, and I severely underestimated how long it would take to get settled. But we're back. It's been a nice little break now. I'm really excited to get back into the content with a new set that's this is like the first iteration. We're going to keep tweaking it, but now we have a allocated space in the crib for the pod, and I'm pretty excited about it. So I'm going to get this crack in here. So this evening we're going to be chatting with a brewery from Toronto. This is a brewery that I was familiar with but probably at a reasonable part of the craft beer journey back in maybe 2015. Around that time, I first discovered them and visited their original brew pub. So it's been really cool to watch them grow. And I actually don't know a ton about the story itself, so I'm really excited to hear all about it. So, guys, please welcome Stuart from Junction Brewery in Toronto. Welcome, sir. How we doing, man? I'm doing great. Great to meet you. Thank you for hanging out.
No worries. Thanks for having me on.
Genuine pleasure, bro. Man, got a lot to talk about this evening. So what we're going to do, we're going to get right into things with this bad boy right here. It is crispy time, so why not have a Junction Crispy Light Lager? Which they're all the rage with the kids these days, this style. I feel like they're I'm seeing them a lot.
Yeah, our head of production, Andrew Bartle, who you may have heard.
Andrew. Yes.
Name, yeah. So he runs our production team, and he was pretty pumped about this product. And it's him and the team. We have an R&D brewer, Jesse, and we were spending a lot of time working with different yeasts for a number of reasons. Not to geek out too much, but how can we turn around lagers more quickly than maybe a traditional lager, but still have all the great elements of a lager through it that's a bit lighter in the alcohol. Which is definitely part of where the world's going, and I think a lot of people are looking for alcohol products, but that also have a lot of flavor and body to them. And we worked on this, and I think it's checked those boxes, and it's been doing really well for us, and people seem to really enjoy it.
When did it drop?
I think we launched it last year.
About
just over a year ago, and it's mostly online, licensees, things like that, and it definitely does well at places like golf courses and spots where
I can see that.
You might want that on a nice warm day.
It's perfect for it. Love it, bro. Well,
thank you.
Let's get that in us. Cheers, my man.
Cheers.
Solid, bro. 3.9%. It's got the brown rice in there, which is a really nice way to keep a lot of flavor and keep the ABV down from what I've seen, which is very, very cool. Do you know what the hops are and anything like this?
Oh, I should know that, shouldn't I?
That's okay. Hey, don't sweat it.
I'll defer to another day, but yeah, I mean, the coolest thing for us on that was we tried at the time. It was a brand new yeast strain from one of our yeast partners. And again, if for those that are really into making beer, what's interesting with this one is the turnaround time. We can, in some cases, cut the whole lagering process or just the making of this beer down by almost half.
Wow.
Which and again, we'll talk about it later. But when you're in a brewery, speed can be important. From running a business perspective, and if you can make a product that no one would probably ever know the difference. That can have benefits. And so that was something that we've looked at and played around with, and actually pass that on to some of the partners we make products for as well, so they can benefit from that kind of learning that we've figured out.
That's awesome, man.
Thanks.
Do you know the name of the yeast, or is that like a low thing?
No, I can definitely share it with you. It's like a numbered. It's like a I think it's like a letter number.
One of those
Yeast.
ones, like the HBC hops or something.
Sorry,
Yeah, yeah,
should
yeah.
have had a bad job on the podcast already.
Hey, man.
So
I'm asking the
uh,
tough questions.
no, that's good. But it's yeah, I mean, it's freely available for them. They're looking for various yeasts, but it's yeah, it's pretty cool. I
Yeah.
know the guys love it. They geek out on that stuff all the time. Yeah.
Very, very good. It turns out really great, man. There's a lot of flavor. I know it's really difficult. Like, people might not always understand how difficult it is to make great tasting lower ABV beers. They kind of maybe get a little, don't get the respect that they're due. And for this to have this much flavor and body at 3.9 is really, really solid, bro. It's very cool.
Yeah, yeah, thanks. Yeah, I mean, again, I know we're definitely proud of it, and I think we also make a lot of non-alc beer where we actually brew it using traditional methods. So
Okay.
it, like a regular beer, and it ferments out at around 0.3. Again, using some special yeast and things like that. And so we learned a lot through that process because that's even more so. How do you create a non-alc beer that has body and flavor and all these things? And so we learned a lot through trial and error, temperature and time and all these things that can help optimize it. And we applied a lot of that to Crispy as well. So that's how you can start to get quite a bit of, like you say, for 3.9% beer, still have a lot of taste. And it's not terribly filtered. So, we kind of keep as much of that taste and body in there as we can.
Yeah, it's like a touch opaque in there, but it's
Yeah.
got a really nice sort of like lemony hue to it. Very cool, bro. Love it. Which
Thank you.
also matches well with the can art is super cool.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, you've done a great job. Is this going to be LCBO or distroed or anything anytime soon?
Yeah, so I don't want to say 100%, but we're actively talking to them right now about bringing it in. Absolutely.
Perfect.
Yeah. And I think it would, and there's not a lot on the market that are fitting into that category on the.
On LCBO shelves, eh? Okay,
Yeah.
that's good. I've noticed these. I found that the style was pretty popular. I remember a few years ago, maybe like 2018 in Quebec, they were talking. I feel like Quebec was like typically pretty behind as far as a lot of trends or different things in beer, but I feel like they were ahead of the game with like the nano and like the really light stuff. I remember doing a podcast with one of the specialty beer stores out there, and all of the beers they had were sub 5%, and they were saying how popular they were and how many people were asking for them. And at first, I was like, "Who even wants this?" Excuse me. But after the last 2 years, where maybe people went on a little bit of a what's the word? They went a little bit too hard. When everything first closed down, and drinking high ABV beers and drinking all the time. I think the pendulum is swinging back to more less calories, lighter ABV, so you can sort of do more over time, and a ton of flavor, which is once again isn't super easy. So it's like starting to roll out and hit here. So it probably is a good time then if you're saying that they haven't hit the LCBO yet. Sorry, many beers in this category haven't hit the LCBO, which is great.
For sure, yeah. I mean, we'll talk about it in a bit, but we're also obviously Woodhouse is part of our business, and they had a very successful light beer for some time, and I think it kind of went through a bit of a wave. It kind of and it did very well for a time, but then it kind of tapered off a little bit, and I think there's probably many reasons. That, a few years ago, to your point, styles and what people were looking for were quite different. But if you look at kind of where we see the industry going with RTDs and how sours kind of came in, and there seems to be a bit of a for beers like lagers and stuff, the need or opportunity to go a little lighter to compete in some of those against some of those other products where people might be thinking, oh, I'll try an RTD instead because it's perceived to be a bit healthier or 4% or clearer or whatever. And so we're seeing some of that in the market from what we hear from customers and what we're seeing in the data, which kind of show us that as well. So I think you're going to see a lot of kind of in that 4 sub 5 come out in the next year or two. Again, to kind of be partly in line with trends and also to compete with products coming on the market that kind of go for a similar audience in some respects.
That's a really good point. I didn't actually align the two. I know that seltzers and RTDs and stuff are definitely taking a chunk of craft beer's lunch on the market there, and I didn't really look at these as being a direct competitor with that. But you're 100% right. These are probably more comparable with the calories and some of the people can sit in the park. Particularly I know summer's wrapping up, but the type of thing that people can sit on and just kind of sip these all day and have enough flavor to keep them going. That's it's solid, but also it's not going to get trashed, and then also not going to feel bloated and everything by the end. So that's
Yeah.
interesting. Okay, it's gonna be
Yeah.
interesting to see how that pans out here.
Yeah, for sure. And it's funny. I mean, we were talking before we started. Spending a lot of time in England. Beers are mostly sub 5. You typically go to the pub, and you're having a 4.5, something like that, and that's what they're used to. And it's culturally they tend to drink a bit of beer, and but they like that sub 5, and for them it just seems to work, and maybe we're seeing a little bit of that here as well. Again, combined with all these other products that are kind of going after that craft market in some respect, to kind of have a level playing field where you can have a bit less alcohol in your products.
That's a great point. As well, the non-bloating probably from all the cask, which has less less carbonation. Interesting.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Love it, bro.
Yeah.
Let's get into your story. I'd love to hear how you personally got into beer, and if you want to sort of like channel that into sort of how Junction came to be.
Yeah. So I guess my story and Junction kind of crossed paths, I guess about 3 years ago now. Junction's been around since 2011. So
2011. Wow.
yeah.
Okay, I was wrong.
And so it's kind of, we're 11 years in now, and started by 3 founders, and they they started in the West End of Toronto in the Junction, actually right closer to train tracks than we are now, and back then the craft beer industry was quite small, right? And I mean, I wasn't in Toronto at the time, but just when I come back to visit, there wasn't a lot of craft beer breweries like there are today. And they kind of got it right time, had a great product. The main product they had at the time was called Conductors Craft Ale, fantastic product. And they really made a name for themselves in the West End. If you were to go down Roncesvalles and places like that, Junction would kind of be everywhere. And they did a great job kind of building that business. And as they were growing and being profitable, it was still a very small space. I think it was about a 3 hectoliter brewing facility.
Right.
So very craft.
Yeah.
Right. And doing great stuff with it. And I think it was around 2017, the building we're in today, which had been derelict since the 80s. It was actually a City of Toronto garbage incinerator from the 1930s. So it was this big deco garbage incinerator built like a tank. Like we have a 12-inch thick concrete ceiling, brick, concrete, steel. The place is it's like bomb-proof. It's huge. And we've got half the space. We have about 17,000 square feet there now. But in the 80s, they decommissioned it. It was used for raves in the 90s. And in 2017, a developer bought it and started to restore it. And the founders, I guess, knew about this building, and it's still kind of in the Junction area, more stockyards. If we get specific, kind of Keele and St. Clair area. And they just kind of saw this opportunity and felt it'd be a great spot for a brewery. So they took the plunge and took over half the space. And that took quite some time, probably a good year and a half to fit it out and so on, and created this beautiful space.
Really
it's really awesome. And but through that process, as all home renovations do, it's kind of 3 times longer, 3 times as much money. And I had to take out some loans and financially started to get a bit tough. And at the same time, the craft beer industry had changed. From when they started to what it was in 2018, there was loads more breweries, lots of change, great stuff happening, lots of innovation, all this good stuff's happening. So they had these kind of factors of they're in a bit of a tough spot trying to finish off this project and raising money and all these things, as well as the industry was changing. And it was kind of a bit of a perfect storm that led to some financial challenges. And that kind of takes us to kind of 2019. My story is kind of getting involved in this. I'd spent most of my working life in the tech sector, much of that in the UK, running an international business for a Toronto tech company. So I was kind of mostly in Europe and Asia, traveling around and so on, and made our way back about 4.5 years ago. And when I moved back after we'd sold the business, some friends of mine had started this charity called 100 Guys Who Care, which later became 100 Who Care. And the premise was, how can you get 100 people in a room every 3 months where people could nominate a local charity they're passionate about, people could kind of vote on it, and everyone threw in $100, and you would surprise the charity with 10 grand. Amazing, kind of simple concept. And they started that off raising a lot of money, about 150, 160 grand, I think, around that at the time, for local charities, which was amazing. And so I kind of got involved helping them, and as guys do, chatting about how you can continue to make things bigger and better. We said, why don't we have a beer? and we'll, we could give 5% of our sales to charities. So simple model, and because we all like beer. And so we started this, what we call Caribrew. And the whole name and premise was actually voted on and decided by the people that would attend those events. So we gave them 3 names to choose from. They voted on Caribrew as the best name. We gave them pictures on the can. They voted on the picture that you see on the can as the best picture. So it's kind of a community-led idea, if you will. And it was just fun. And it was really just about making some beer and giving back to the community. And it was really as simple as that. I mean, there's definitely others that do that now. A number of beers give a percentage of profits. This was sales. So we kind of, we wanted to put our money where our mouth was and just really have a bit of fun with it. It's very Canadiana, the name, caring and brewing, and it was community led. So it's kind of a fun thing. And it started to kind of take off. We got into the LCBO, and my other partners, they were working they had jobs, and after we'd moved back, I was kind of figuring out what to do next. So I was kind of taking on it, and I'd never run a brewery. I love beer, but I hadn't run a brewery, and being a kind of a contract brewer at the time, Junction was making our beer, and knew they were having some challenges. So we said, hey, look, we need to scale this up. You have bands and bricks and mortar and all these things that are for a contract brewer would be fantastic. Why don't we sell you Caribrew, and that might help you out, and in return it can go on to hopefully bigger and better things. So that's how the Caribrew kind of got joined up, where their board said, sure, we'll bring it on. And then kind of thought that was that. And then the board asked if I could come and help do a rebrand of Junction. And sorry, my dog's panting in the background.
Oh, you're right. Cutie.
And so then the board asked if I could come in and kind of do a rebrand of Junction, because I think one of the challenges they felt at the time was the brand they started out with, which was kind of that kitschy railroad kind of brand, which had done very well. It was great and very, very current at the time. Fast forward to 2018, Toronto, big city, that railroad thing, it maybe wasn't as kind of in as it maybe in the past. So we wanted something that was kind of more abstract, contemporary, definitely more inclusive, because it had kind of the guy on the can and kind of very railroady kind of thing. So I said, sure, let's see what we can do there. So that was kind of my foray into helping Junction. So I called in some favors from the UK, and we really took a kind of contemporary approach at what the Junction neighborhood is on a can. And that's when you look at Crispy, that's where that came from. So, if you turn the can sideways and you were to kind of imagine it was a black can with white writing, it's basically pulled off one of those big oil tankers. So the black kind of bar there with the text and stuff is like you get on the rail tanker, and the fonts are all inspired by kind of that kind of oil tanker, if you will. So what we did is let's take that concept, put this abstract kind of liquid vibe behind it with very vivid colors, and just make it simple, and maybe a little different than what you see in a lot of other cans. And so, and that was really it. Let's just have something contemporary, abstract, with a kind of a subtle nod to the railroad past of the Junction community, which we're obviously very proud to be a part of. So that's what we kind of started and went down that path there. And you'll see on the different cans, they all have kind of a very similar layout, but different kind of coloring and so on in the background. And so it started that. And then from there, they said, actually, we need a bit of help. Can you come and help us kind of restructure the business and get it going? Because we have a big space. Big space could grow a lot more. And, anyone who runs a brewery will tell you, you got to make sure the plant's working well for it to be a successful business. So that's how I kind of got involved in running Junction, long story short. So,
no, that's awesome, man. That's great.
Yeah. And,
that's very cool. That's not what I expected, to be honest. I didn't realize that that's like a really very unique way to get involved in a project like this.
Totally. I mean, I say accidentally, but I say that with passion because I love it. I mean, even though most of my time, probably 60 plus 70% of my time at Junction has been through COVID, which is kind of crazy. We've come out the other end better than ever, although that was a difficult couple of years going through that process. to be in the spot we're in now, it's very exciting.
Yeah,
And I'm very kind of bullish on the whole kind of beer and beverage industry and kind of where we're going with that,
that's
which
great.
is it's been pretty cool for
I
sure.
definitely want to get more into that.
Hmm.
I'd definitely be curious on your thoughts on that. How does it feel coming from tech and then going into maybe a significantly more casual industry like beer, where the vast majority of your competitors are smaller businesses that
Yeah.
maybe don't approach it in a way that Junction is? I mean, obviously the scale of what you guys are, you have no, that's how the business has to operate. But most breweries are small, like where you started, where Junction started at that. The currently People's Pint Brewery. Um,
Yeah.
the Yeah, how was that for you coming from UK, Europe, Asia, tech to then to this sort of like, maybe what's a rough and tumble kind of industry where everyone's just for the long time just flying by the seat of their pants, and maybe only over the last decade or so did a lot of these smaller breweries start to take it very seriously.
Yeah, totally. It's funny too is even the types of equipment you can buy at the scale of craft. A lot of that stuff has only really been around for a few years, and it's really starting to evolve over the last 5, 6, 7 years, where it's starting to get a bit more sophisticated. So it's the industry as a whole hasn't been it's not as and I say this not in a negative way, but the level of sophistication around how the business is run, from the access to equipment that a lot of these breweries can get, through to the systems and the tools and all the operational aspects that in tech we spend a lot of time really working on and honing to help us grow very, very quickly. A lot of that hasn't necessarily made its way into the craft beer kind of industry, as well as the challenge with beer is you've got high capital expenditure. Equipment costs a hell of a lot of money. You've got highly taxed, regulated, and you're getting pricing pressure on both ends. So you end up having not a lot of money, or that margin, which you can still be very successful as a brewery, but that money you have, or that pocket of money, compared to other industries like tech, for example, it tends to be much smaller. So your ability to continually invest and grow on its own can be very difficult, and that's why a lot of breweries rely on a lot of investment. And
Mm.
unfortunately, why over the next year or two we're going to see a tough time for the craft beer industry as they've come out of COVID, unfortunately, and try to figure out how they evolve and grow, which is unfortunate, but it's a reality of the mechanics of how these businesses work.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's a good point. Have any of your skills or just experiences in maybe that larger kind of business world, has that been? I'm just curious because I own a business with my partner. We own a social media agency. We've been, so I'm always fascinated by the entrepreneurial side and like the business side, which I feel like doesn't really get enough, light shone on it as far as the beer. People just mostly care about the liquid, which is obviously the most of it. But when I
Yeah.
get an opportunity to talk to someone like yourself, it's I really love it because I really value when people bring this other sort of perspective and that approach to beer, and just really, beer is a business, and I think a lot of people do forget that because they just think it's all about the what's in the glass at the end of the day. But
Sure.
did you have any unique, like maybe either from your other people at Junction, or just were you able to come in and just be like, why are you doing this like this? This is not efficient. We should do it this way. Were there any sort of things that you kind of had just picked up over the years that you were able to immediately, or maybe even not immediately, just over the last couple of years, even like implement that sort of made things more efficient, or just improved things that maybe someone from within the industry who just sort of only seen beer may not have been able to immediately identify?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, if when you look at say a tech company, and we would be growing very quickly, depending on the year, somewhere between 50, 60, 70% year over year growth. The only way you can do that successfully is by putting in the systems processes to allow you to scale quickly.
Right.
And it's maybe not this fun, sexy part of any business, especially here, right? But if you can do a good job at that, it can help you run the whole business better, where you don't need as much time and energy from people running around doing stuff all the time. And that's not to say you want to do that to let people go. It's but so you can reposition that that time and energy on other things you can to help you grow. So, getting involved, there wasn't a lot of systems other than say a finance tool and spreadsheets to help run the business. So we put in a lot of new systems, from everything from POS to upgrading our finance system to systems that help us manage our LCBO and licensee data. We'll probably talk about it a bit, but we have a whole contract, what we call craft beverage services, which is a whole suite of services to help beverage producers make products and take them to market. And so we're actually, we're rolling out a whole kind of portal for them so they can go and manage their entire engagement with us, from scheduling to products to, putting in requests and all that stuff, which to me gets me excited because I've seen it work for many businesses where if you put in technology, it can really help you run your business better and be smarter about it and use data to make informed decisions. And that's the same for any business. And so, I think we're trying to really find ways to innovate and do that in terms of in every aspect of our business on how we do it today, and apply technology so that we can optimize and allow the team to do what they want to do, which is focus on making great quality beer, focus on packaging great quality products, focus on getting our message out and things like that. And so if we can have all the systems behind the kind of talking to each other and all joined up, that just makes us a bit better as a business.
That's awesome, man. I love that. I definitely, we're going to be talking about the contracting thing, and that's super cool. This is like, I'm with you on that. I kind of get off on, like, I love hearing that if there's this whole thing like plug and play where you're like not only helping Junction, but you're helping other business owners get started, and then it must be able to see them flourish into their own brick and mortar space, because that's usually the way that it works. I love that a lot, man. And it's been cool with Junction. Of course, we just spoke about it before that you guys are 11 years in, and I was saying in the intro that I think I discovered it must have been around 2014 or 15 then maybe. And I remember going to the pub, and the guy couldn't understand my accent because I wanted a flight, and I had to get my friend who was my co-host on the pod, ended up being my co-host for the first couple of years. And I was like, "Can I get a flight?" And he's like, "What? A flight?" And I was like, "Scott," he's like, "A flight." And he's like, "Okay, cool." It was just so funny because I never forget that specific moment. I always had that problem, but it was just a very funny one because I must have been saying it pretty weird. But yeah, it was a cute pub, nice little vibe. Definitely along those sort of English style beers, like you said, the Conductor Ale, which I think was the first one in cans. No, I swear I got that in bottles, in like the stubby bottles.
Yeah, they tried a lot of formats. Obviously from growlers to. I think it's at the 650 ml bottles. I'm trying to remember now. We had a different bottle. They had a small bottling machine at the time where they were trying different formats, and it's great. It worked really well for what they were doing in that space. Right. It was a cool space. Again, small brewing system, and they were really pushing it and trying to play around with format. But a lot of the time when they were doing that, that whole the can concept wasn't really where it is today. No. One of the reasons we're so heavily 473 ml cans is the LCBO would only sell 473 ml cans. So everyone starts going all in because for them at scale in their warehouse and everything, managing cases of 24 cans in that format made sense for the LCBO. And for a lot of people, that's one of their livelihoods in terms of distribution. So you kind of fall in line with that these days. So, yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I didn't really think of it like that. I just thought it was more of a convenience thing. Like less weight on a truck. You can carry more stuff. It's a little more, easier to recycle. Blah blah.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. We're seeing now everyone kind of want to go to 355s. This is kind of the format. Or if you're a healthier option, it's sleek cans.
Yes.
So, which is the new craze, the new format. But I guess like anything, formats change as people see opportunity and how they want to brand and present their products. But the 473 mil, I mean, the LCBO, at least in Ontario, has been heavily involved in kind of making that change because for them, that logistically, I think that just made sense for them, probably for many reasons that you and I don't know. But for them, it made sense, and and I think for us, that's why we're at least, we have two formats now, and now actually Sleeks with the RTDs, but we were only 473 ml cans because it just made sense to have one format. And if that's what the LCBO wanted, we would just stick to that format.
No, that makes complete sense. But then seeing it go from that brew pub, and I was saying to you off while we were setting up it must have been, when was the launch? Was it 2019 of the new facility?
Yeah, the kind of official. The brewery had been there in that space a little bit.
Yes.
It was kind of settled in and ready to go around that time. Yeah, it kind of ended 2018, and then we did the launch in 2019. Kind of the let's have a bit of a party and celebrate it. Yeah.
Early 29. I remember being cold. I remember having to run to the car and put my jacket in because I didn't want to wear it
It must.
inside.
Well, I mean, I was there, but I'm trying to think. I kind of officially got involved in the summer of 2019, so maybe I was
Or
there
maybe it was
helping them out. Yeah, yeah,
it was the end of the year then.
could have
Either
been.
way, it was just like it's such a the way you described it was right. It's like it's such like a it's like a wedding venue type of beautiful brick, whatever. I don't even know how many feet ceiling was that 50-foot ceilings or something.
I think we're about. No, it's about 25, 26 feet.
Oh,
I think.
I
Yeah, yeah.
have no idea. Either way,
No,
it just feels
I
so
thought
grand.
color as well. Yeah.
Yeah, it was just like it was cool because you had this the bar is like great right at the front next to like the retail store was dope and just the way, to be honest, I've only been there during events if I'm not mistaken.
Mhm.
um so I don't know if I've seen it normal, but the way that that sort of main area, I guess I don't know if it's an event space, but just they had like all these like tables for people and cool food vendors and stuff like that. um it was just like it's such a vibe in there. It's like a really really cool place. I don't know if is that specific space like when you kind of go behind the bar. Is that a there wasn't, at least at the time I went, because I haven't really been back again since 2019, I guess. The Is there fermenters and stuff there now? Because to me, it sort of looked like it was like that was the space to grow, and it was kind of just being the space was being utilized in the meantime.
Yeah, for sure. We the space has evolved in the last couple of years quite
Yeah, I
significant
bet.
as we've grown. I think, yeah, that we were quite event heavy when we opened because there was a lot of empty space and we could do these lovely weddings. And for people that wanted to get married in a brewery, it was perfect. You could have 150 seated weddings surrounded by fermenters and shiny steel, and it looked lovely, right?
Yeah,
And people had, I hope, great events there. I'm gonna have to let my dog out soon.
that's okay. I just got a
uh,
pup. I completely understand.
yeah, yeah. So, but yeah, so you know, as we grew and put in more fermenters, that became obviously harder to do. So we now kind of focus our events in our tap room space, which is still big. We can have about 80 or so people, no problem. We got a patio that can have another 80 people outside.
Amazing.
We can still do lovely events, but they tend to be either smaller seated or more casual. And so yeah, so that's evolved, I guess, post COVID, as we've kind of grown and focused on the plant, because obviously COVID took away our events business and taproom business and all these things. So we've had to evolve and grow, as the times allowed us to. But yeah, still a great space for events. But yeah, it's now our back brewery is now full of lots and lots of fermenters, and we've doubled our output in the last 18 months, and we'll probably double it again in the next year or so.
Jeez,
Yeah.
man, that's amazing. Feel
Yeah.
free take the
Yeah,
take
I'm just gonna let him out so he's
do it up. No worries. Yeah, it's such a beautiful space. Like I don't know why I was just if you see me sweating, guys, there's a fly down here, and I don't know why there's a fly in the damn basement. Yeah, it's just like a really really cool space. The event that I went to just had like all these like cool, like it was like the beers were paired with different food. It was just like it was a really impressive way to see the space. So I was always, and because I had a bunch of the beers earlier on when I was sort of discovering craft beer in Ontario. And to be fair as well, like you said, like the old branding and the styles were very much in line with what was happening in Ontario in 2011, because that's when I got into it.
yeah,
It was exactly what you were seeing everywhere, like all the different breweries, whether it's Nickelbrook, Trafalgar, Bose, like Wellington, were all doing very similar stuff. And there wasn't that many competitors. The scene was very small. So seeing
absolutely.
that change and grow into what
Yeah.
it is now was very impressive, and including the rebrand, which I think maybe that was the event I went to. Maybe it was like a rebrand event or something.
Yeah, it was like a rebrand slash
Like space
event
launch.
in the new space. It was kind of we hadn't had a chance because of everything going on, with them trying to get it up and running, and it just made sense at the time to be kind of like, hey, let's just have we got lots to talk about. Let's try and get some people out, get some excitement going, and just celebrate, the space and where we were going as a business at the time.
Yeah.
Uh, you know, had we known COVID was coming. But yeah, it was but yeah, it was great, and we're very fortunate. I mean, there's obviously loads of awesome breweries and amazing spaces in Toronto and Ontario. But I think we're very fortunate with ours. It's pretty awesome. It's very lofty and just a great space to kind of take in some history of Toronto and a great brewing facility.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. And it's a perfect spot when people like breweries almost do better when they're surrounded by other breweries, and it's like there's a couple of breweries around the corner from you guys. So it's like the perfect place for like a crawl, which is something I really appreciate. It's if you're gonna, particularly if you don't live near there and you're gonna make the trek out, well, you've got a whole afternoon, evening, that you're able to spend at a few places and really kind of soak up a part of Toronto brewing. It's very, very cool.
Yeah, we've unofficially called it the Ale Yards.
After
the Stockyards area, and we have Reinhardt and Shacklands and two great breweries in their own right, and yeah, they're awesome. It's nice having them as neighbors. For sure, it's great.
Love it. How you feel about the next one, bro?
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
Dealer's choice, my friend. What do you feel like?
Well, why don't we? Do you want to go back and forth, or do you want to kind of go? Maybe the Pilsner, a bit more alcohol, and then we go into something hoppy, or what do you think?
I'm totally comfortable with that. The Junction Pils?
Yeah.
I'm totally down. I love a good crispy boy. So this bad boy right here, kind of almost like the opposite of what you were talking about with the white writing on a black can. This is like the black writing on kind of like that sort of light gray can, but it's got, I just noticed here, there's like some real like gray text in the background that really does give you that train. What did you call it? The train car vibe.
Oh, like those black oil tankers.
Yes.
Yeah. Really inspired by that. There's a story on that one. We're actually within a month you'll have like a new Pilsner one, which is a lot more colorful.
Okay.
I am partial. To be completely transparent, we had like, let's have a core lineup which is kind of more gray and monochrome, with the idea that a lot of cans on the shelf, there's just so much color, and it's great and it's awesome. But how do you kind of cut through that noise? And chatting to some designer guys, we're like, well, why don't we just try it and kind of go more kind of monochrome? And so you have the Pilsner, and we got the hazy IPA, which is like a darker gray, almost like and then we have the stout, which is black. So you kind of had those kind of three cans, and the idea they'd be very kind of angular in their shapes and forms on the can. And then we'd have these seasonals or things like crispy that are very colorful. Hands up on that. I think it's a great idea. It photographs great. I think people like colors, so we're going to do a nice, bright, colorful version, and I'll happily say that. Hands up on that. But that was our kind of thing to try and see how it works. And some people love it and they get it, and other people are like, it'd be fun to have a lot more colors. So we're going to play around with that. We got some really, I think, cool stuff coming that's using special inks and things like that, and that'll be out in probably about hopefully 6 to 8 weeks.
Well, that's cool. And it looks like you're doing the printed cans too, eh?
Yeah, well, we tried to. Some are printed, if not sleeves. And then we've been playing around with a great partner, actually out of Quebec, that does digital printed cans.
Hot print.
That's right.
Yes.
And, it's great because I think it's no minimum. So for those that don't have a large volume of cans, they can still do printed cans and get kind of some of those same benefits. And they can do some really neat stuff with it. It's great.
Yeah, we did like a little video just before we moved, and it was fascinating. Like, you really wouldn't think how fascinating the can and digital printing industry is. I was very surprised that they were sort of aggressively moving into Ontario, which was super smart because there's nobody. I think they said they're the only digital printing facility in, I want to say, North America or Canada or something. It's pretty crazy that it didn't exist.
Yeah, I think they've got some fancy European machine that's great stuff, and yeah, they've been lovely to work for. And you're right, I think they've been having a lot of success coming into Ontario. We have a number of partners that we make products for that has been using them as well.
Too.
Yeah,
that's great. That's very very cool.
Yeah.
Love to see it. This one, so this is 4.6, so it's a little bit of a boost. This is more of a traditional German Pils, noble hops.
Yeah,
looks little it looks definitely a little what's the word? Darker, maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. So this one is, I guess, made more in a traditional sense. Crispy, we really tried to play around with how do you kind of without taking away that the good bits of having a lager. How can you speed up the time and do something a little low alc and all that? This is more of a traditional pilsner. We're pretty fortunate in the brewery that we actually have a cellar with these 10 horizontal lagering tanks, so we can actually lager horizontally, which is a very kind of traditional method of doing that. I don't think there's a lot of breweries that have these kind of horizontal tanks in this part of the world.
No,
It could be
few
wrong,
and far
but I
between. Don't see it very
and
often at all.
yeah, so we kind of take that. It's kind of like how we do a modern take on that kind of more traditional pilsner. I know Andrew, when he was thinking, this, we don't make sure that there's the right level of bitterness, and he takes a lot of time on his craft of what this recipe was like. And yeah, we're very proud of the pilsner. We always get fantastic reviews, so for what it's
Love
worth.
it.
Yeah, it's great. We're very proud of that one.
Hell yeah. All right, brother. Cheers. Okay, so it's definitely a lot different to the Chris. I do like having them back to back. Which is great. So it's definitely like it's you can tell it's bigger. It's a bigger beer.
Absolutely.
But still super smooth, crisp. I'm getting like that grassy, like peppery SARS. Like if it's noble hops, I imagine it's probably SARS and maybe some other stuff.
Yeah.
In there that work well. Nice and bready, bitter, balanced, smooth.
Yep. Yeah, thank you. Got the main ones in there. It's great.
Right. Lots of one-word descriptions here for it. Yeah, this is dope, man. This is solid. I'm surprised I haven't had this before. I really thought I would have had this.
Yeah,
is
thank
this
you.
a newer beer? Is it like the rebrand of?
I would say the recipe's evolved like any beer. I think
Okay.
it evolve over time. It is at the LCBO, and again, we'll probably one of the many things to talk about as we kind of went through COVID and restructured the company. The Junction brand was really kind of running on a kind of a smaller budget per se, but now it's ramping back up, and you'll see it in lots and lots of spots over the coming months. But it's but yeah, it's I definitely say it's one of our top beers, and something I know the team takes very seriously. Again, you say coming from tech, what's one of the I think hopefully I brought some things that from my learnings around process and all these kind of operational things that I can geek out on. But one of the things I learned coming into the beer space that is, I guess, obvious, but you don't think about it, is that what they taught me pretty quick is when you look at a brewery, you can try to tell if how good they are by drinking their lagers or their pilsner.
Yes.
Because it's counterintuitive. A lot of people, a lager is typically the cheaper beer. You don't think much of it, right? Especially in the mainstream market. But you can't hide behind anything. You got your 4 ingredients. It takes a lot longer to make typically, mistakes can be seen. And so I know that the team takes that seriously in making sure we can try and create great lagers and pilsners, and that kind of craft around it, which I really appreciate, and it's great to learn from them and watch them do that, which is pretty cool. It's not to say that IPAs are bad or whatever, but when some of these you're putting lots of things in it, it can mask or kind of maybe hide imperfections. That's not to say they're bad beers, but it can hide some of those imperfections which you can't necessarily hide behind with just straight lagers and pilsners.
100%.
Interesting to learn when I got into the beer space.
Yeah, man, that's a really great point, and it's something that I feel like you sort of when you get in. Well, I don't know if it works like this way with the newer beer drinkers, but when probably people like us got into it, you come in from the different lagers, from macro lagers, you discover maybe Euro, and then local craft lagers, and then you kind of move amber and browns and porters and blah blah blah, and you go through the Belgians and that whole sort of rainbow of beers that maybe people skip these days, and they go straight to haze or whatever, and then you kind of come back around. And now, if I go into a brewery, the very first thing I'm like, "What's the crispy boy? What are you guys saying with that?" And it's the first thing, because you're exactly right. You can judge a brewery sort of overall quality by how well their lager is, or how well made the lager is, but also maybe not always, because sometimes they might specialize in something else and they're kind of like just dabbling in the crispy world, because it's become, strangely, as you probably know, like a part of the how do you describe it? Sort of a part of the hype world. So like the breweries that do New England IPAs and are known for that, the breweries that do like smoothies and pastry stouts and everything are getting into lagers. It's like it's sort of, if you go into one of those breweries, you're going to see Crispies, Haze, pastries, and smoothies or something like that. So it's sort of it's kind of worked its way into that world. It's like, and I don't know, I always thought it was just because it was a brewer's beer. That's the beer that brewers wanted to drink, because after 10 hours of being up at 6 a.m. and sweating and lifting heavy stuff, you don't want an 8% double IPA. You want a 4.5%, Pilsner. So they make it. Then there was this renaissance. I don't know if you noticed this, because around the time you got into beer, it was happening. There was like this, I think the Czech government did these sponsored trips to send brewers, on head brewers mostly, or owners, over. And I noticed it a lot in Ontario and Quebec. And they sent over and they did these like pilgrimage in 2018, 2019. Then you came back, in the last couple of years, it's just been like insane level, very high quality Czech style Pilsners all across both provinces, which has been, so if you are getting into lagers, like you were saying, you can't hide anything, but now there are these people who are doing triple decoction and taking it really, really seriously. It's like this whole like sub nerdy version of Pilsners that are trying to get as traditional as possible. So I think that's a very cool thing as well. So love to see it.
Totally. I agree. Actually, we have a product, a dark lager. I don't know if you have that one there. And the team kind of managed to get some Czech ingredients and kind of modeled our version off a brewery in the Czech Republic, where they only make one style of dark lager. This was our take on it.
I know what you're talking about. Someone mentioned them to me like 3 days ago. There's Ufleku.
Yes, that's right.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
so this was I
love them. They're the best.
Yes, this was our take, and I think the team did an awesome job on it. And I love the story. It's like, we managed to get similar ingredients, come up with our own recipe inspired by this brewery that's been around countless hundreds of years and just done one beer. Like that's so cool.
It's so cool, man. And dark lagers, I think, are like one of the best. They're so underrated.
Yeah.
As far as like, they're just like, oh, man, whenever I see a black lager or Schwartz beer or anything like that, I grab it always. I love them so much. They're fascinating. So it's just really cool to see. And you guys are doing a lot of this at scale, right? So I think it's even cooler that you guys are doing this with that level of dedication. Like, I know Andrew, and I know his missus, Marissa. I spoke to her the other day. Known him for years and years. Not super well, but throughout the scene, she saw the box that was sending, and she sent me a picture like 2 days ago. I was like, hey, I was like, yeah, I'm having Stuart on. We're having a chat.
That's awesome.
So I like hearing that. I know that Andrew takes his stuff seriously, and I like to see that because you guys are, as mentioned before, the maybe light or lagers in general maybe don't get the respect they do as far as, light lagers I was saying that about, because, maybe it's not exciting, but it is really hard to make well.
Sure.
I think also the other type of, the other main thing in craft beer that doesn't get the respect that it's deserved is breweries that are arguably gateway to new drinkers, or potentially macro drinkers to lead them into, because you guys are a welcoming space. You have a lot of easy drinking stuff that's very approachable, as opposed to things that are kind of like, correct me if I'm wrong here, this is my take on sort of what I've seen for Junction. Rather than, I feel like I could go there, I would be, as a beer nerd, be completely satiated with everything I would drink, but I could bring my friend who just drinks Canadian along, and they would have a fantastic time, because they'd be like, oh, what's this? Oh, okay, cool. Here's the stuff that's similar. Oh, I like this. Okay, cool. Well, why don't you try this? And then all of a sudden they're digging into craft beer, and they're now piqued their interest.
Sure.
So to see, I'd love to hear your take if you think that that's an accurate thing, just because of the scale that you guys are doing it at. That is undervalued, because if that didn't exist, then the craft breweries don't exist. Someone has to bring them in. And a lot of craft breweries are preaching to the choir as such, which is fine, which is totally cool. It's not growing the situation. So I think the gateway breweries are growing it, and then those individuals start to go on their little journey and learn more about beer. Yeah.
I mean, approachable. I mean, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't think anything you said there was inaccurate at all. We if we go to our tap room, we have a whole R&D program. So we'll always put different things on there. Like, we've got a bunch of smoked beers coming out and things like that, where, we might not be the brewery where we're going out there and doing crazy things. Not that we can, but there's probably people that might do better at that, right? And where I think we can do a great job is how do we take what's a modern take on classics, or where we can innovate around more traditional things like lagers, and what are all the things you could do around that, or as well as IPAs and things. It's not just lagers, but we're I always use this example. I don't know why, but it's not like we're going to be the ones putting, say, peanut butter or something in. There's people that probably do better than that and still make it a great beer. But for us, it's how do we just take either modern takes on classics, or kind of innovate around those, with the idea that if we can kind of obsess over the quality bits, we can just make great beers that you can have a few of, and just have something that's really enjoyable. It might not get the headlines as the fanciest beer, but we know they're great, and we're very proud of them, and we think that people can enjoy them, and that's what we're trying to do, and just listen to our customers and learn from what they like and don't like as well. And to your point too, we're a bigger craft brewery, so we also have to think of how do we do that kind of at scale. We have to make sure we can reach the customers to keep the wheels turning, as you will.
Yeah, very, very key, man. I love that. I love the fact that it's even that you're aware of that as well. Speaking of all of that stuff, I was thinking, so to sort of maybe paint the picture of maybe the breadth of what you're doing now. I imagine there's people here who've been drinking Junction for 10 years, are familiar with a lot of the beers, and but there's going to be people who maybe you're just hearing about you now. So as far as the Junction brand, and then we can maybe touch on some of the other stuff that you're doing, whether it's including Woodhouse and some of the breweries that you're working with, as far as you're brewing their stuff for them. Maybe just talk us through generally the general portfolio. I mean, I know this is probably quite vast, and you don't have to mention everything off the top of your head, but just sort of paint a bit of the picture so people understand what it is that Junction does currently. Yeah.
So and maybe just quickly how we got into that. So and you asked again before, like some of my experiences, maybe looking at it with a different set of eyes, is when I got involved, and you're in a situation where you've got a brewery that has a great equipment, very skilled team, making really good quality products, but it got some financial challenges, and we're trying to figure that out. And then COVID hits, and we always talk, it was like March 18th, 2020, COVID, everything shut down. We moved online like next day. We were all like, 6 people a day going out doing deliveries, and, kind of figured all that out. We had to kind of really figure out what's our future. Like if a brewery went into COVID with an arm tied behind its back, you're kind of in trouble. Yes, there was subsidies and things like that, but it was going to be tough. And even speaking to other breweries that were in similar situations, it wasn't a nice time. And it was obviously when we shut down initially, I think a few of us, probably myself included, be like, it'll be for a few weeks or a month. It'll be fine. We'll be fine. We'll figure it out. Yeah, exactly. So, we kind of went into it with an arm tied behind our back as we were trying to fix the business financially. And through that time, it was like, okay, we're in this situation where we essentially become an online business, which was doing great. But we just didn't know what the future was going to be. And at that time we didn't know. And we had to figure out how we grew quickly, even through COVID, because as we were trying to restructure and fix some of these past financial woes, the goal was to try and grow our way out of it, right? Through COVID, very difficult. So what we were trying to figure out is, what do we do? So we would focus on our brand and sell that online, and that was working okay. But at the same time, we'd been playing around and working with some partners of making other products for them. And just from my background, kind of in that tech world and B2B world and all these things you don't necessarily talk a lot about in craft beer, when you looked at our equipment and what we were capable of, was there something there where we could build this kind of business or this revenue channel around helping others take their products to market as well? And that's, not like we're the first to do this. There's other companies out there that do this very well at much, much higher scales. Like their facilities are much, much bigger than ours, and they make all sorts of high volume stuff. And so the idea was, could we do this at the small to mid market, where what we mean by that is like the smaller side, where we can scale it and still make money by helping these guys bring their products to market, but at a kind of a smaller scale. So we started to kind of invest in that and look for opportunities. And that we kind of hit an opportunity, and it just kind of exploded. And we actually had to be turning people away because we found there was a need for that size of business that needed product, where be it a pub that had a high volume SKU in the LCBO where they needed canned product, be it a contract brewer that was just starting up, whether they had ambitions to have their own brewery or just wanted to be a brand. They needed a production facility, and they didn't necessarily want to be doing that kind of thing. And then so we started to learn and kind of grow and kind of quickly got customers on that side, and that actually became our quickest growing channel. And then last year, which was the weirdest thing, is we were having our best year ever financially, which meant that we didn't get any of those COVID subsidies stopped, which again, going into something when we're in trouble, it was kind of a double whammy. But we were still kind of growing. And then as we came out of COVID, the financial troubles kind of caught up with us. So we had to take this kind of really, difficult but necessary decision to do a formal restructuring, get the business, all cleaned up, and basically, so that took us to January 1, where we were basically in our best financial health, and a growing business. So we kind of came out of that in a very good spot. Not sexy or fun, but just necessary in the business world to make sure that we're around for a long, long time to come, and that we can continue to invest in our customers and our team and all these kinds of things. So from that point on, the board, to me, our new board, was like, okay, we have to grow very quickly, and how do we do that? And so we started to kind of think, okay, well, when we look at all the customers and what we're doing, we've evolved from just being a brewery, even though we're using the same equipment. We have a pasteurizer that can pasteurize root beers, but it also does cold brew coffee or sparkling waters or non-alc products, and RTDs, or we have all the equipment to do RTDs and all these other products. So we started doing that for customers. So we kind of, as of January 1, when we finished our restructuring, it was like, okay, we're kind of a beverage business now. And so we kind of, we started to work along that path, because although beer is kind of, that's where we came from. That's what we're about. We're always going to be a brewery. We were still doing these other things. And so the first thing we did as we started to grow is, coming out of that restructuring, we'd met Graham Woodhouse, who was looking for his next move, and how does he take his business to the next step. And so we decided, stars aligned, and we acquired Woodhouse, and then we kind of rebranded as this Junction Craft Beverage Co., which essentially is kind of a corporate entity that has multi-brands. So Junction Craft Brewery, Woodhouse, we have the Caribou piece, and then we have what we call Craft Beverage Services, which basically helps create products for over 30 partners now. Again, from everything from beer to non-alcoholic beer to RTDs and non-alc products, where it could be like sparkling water, where we work with some great kind of craft brands in that space as well, which are doing really cool flavor profiles and stuff. And so we've evolved very quickly in the last year, where again, through the learnings of making our own beer, we've really started to kind of gain a lot of experience around how do we create amazing non-alcoholic beer, how do we create processes around doing non-alc beverages, and then also creating we have like an R&D kind of, I'll say division. It's really Jesse, our R&D brewer, but how do we create services around that so that we're not just a factory that makes stuff. We have services, like we can help you do your development. We can help you with the logistics. We can help you with distribution, where we've got a bodega and our partners can sell their products. We offer, same day delivery in Toronto and things like that. So we've kind of started to build out this, I'd like to think of it as a community. I hope our partners do, where it's kind of, how do we celebrate all things craft? Because one of the things we're seeing is that what craft beer has been really great at is not only creating great products that, people like you and I love to consume, but they created great experiences, right, around the brand. And there's been a lot of innovation and creative ideas around that. And what we're seeing, or what I believe as well, is that the consumer is starting to look for those same experiences in everything else they drink. So as they might say, oh, I want a healthier product to drink, like whether true or not, an RTD or a non-alc beer, or just sparkling water, where it's like Buble became the cool product. Nothing wrong with it. But now you're seeing these kind of craft experiences, these craft versions of that startup. And I think that's pretty exciting, because for the end consumer, they can still go to a cool shop that they like to go to and find these cool brand experiences, that are just the same kind of thing that they found in, say, craft beer. And so we're seeing that across the board through non-alc to beer and kind of happen now and bubble up. And we think there's an opportunity for us to be positioned there where we can really help these startup brands or brands that might be already going, where we can help them kind of scale up and take those products to market through our experience of what we've learned through all, over the last couple of years. And so that's what we call this kind of craft beverage services, or this partner channel, where we've invested a lot in kind of the tools and things to help make that work well. So again, we've really evolved, kind of long story short, into a beverage business where we've got our own brands, which are beer focused mostly, and then we've got our partner channel, which is helping these other people bring products to market. And it's something I get very passionate about, because I love working with others and helping see their businesses grow, and learning from them on how we can help them better grow their businesses. Because after all, I mean, Spirit of Craft Beer it's a community, and if we can kind of take that up at a scale, so to speak, then I think that's pretty cool.
Amen, man. That's awesome. I love that. I know we're going to get into Woodhouse when we get into one of their beers. The portfolio for, like you said, I mean, I know you got the RTDs, which we're also going to get into, but would you say that, what, Woodhouse was sort of had an established, I've known Graham for a while too, and to see him sort of, he started off with a couple of beers and then sort of grew it out slowly into these really just simple, straight up type of products, at least in his branding as well. And with Caribou and with what Junction's doing, does it all kind of, I guess it gives you a portfolio kind of that breadth, as far as basically there's almost nothing that you don't do between everything for the most part. Was that part of the inspiration for, say, acquiring something like Woodhouse? Because he's got a pretty deep portfolio as well on that.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, look, Graham built a very successful business, and he's awesome. He's a great salesperson. He understands the beer world very, very well. And he created a great business. They were one of the largest contract brewers in the province. For us, the stars aligned. I think for them as a contract brewer, is you get to a certain point, by adding bricks and mortar, it gives you access to channels like online and direct to consumer. Having a facility, what can we do from an R&D and kind of a product perspective to get products out? And again, fully transparent, there's a benefit on the bottom line when you go from contract to being bricks and mortar. So there's just a lot of benefits for us to kind of come together, because we both had something to bring to that relationship, and that's what drove that. Where do we go? Who knows? Will we look to acquire other businesses? Yeah, probably. Will they be complementary? Will it be just another brewery? Maybe, maybe not. It could be complementary to where we think the world's going. Absolutely. But I also think we'll invest more in our partner channel and really, again, build that community of how do we work with brands we think are doing great stuff that we want to work with and be a part of their growth in one form or another. So I guess we would be a kind of a portfolio in certain respects. But we really just want to celebrate craft and all the cool things going on around it. And we will focus on the things we think we could do well in terms of how we think we could create a product and take it to market. We're not great at everything, obviously. And we'll work with others that are doing their own thing that's great, where we can just help them take those products to market through kind of more the back end services, be it production or distribution and things like that. So yeah, we've got, again, in the craft beer space, because we have kind of a bigger facility, we kind of want to build this house of craft, if you will. And I think if it falls in line with that, where we can work with others or ourselves to innovate and just do fun things, that's kind of what gets us excited every day and gets us up to go to work, if that makes sense.
Yeah, man, definitely. No, I love that. You mentioned before when you were talking about the partners that run through the craft beverage services. And I remember, I'm not sure if they were still with you, but True History, I think, were working with you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I remember touching them. They had some good distro early on, and I connected with them. You mentioned, so if a brewery does work with you guys, do they can they kind of choose which services, or say automatically are you able, because you brew it there, you're able to at the very least sell their stuff in your store on premise? So it gives them an automatic channel of distribution, even if they have, before they've even landed an LCBO, if they don't take you up on the distribution side of things, at the very least, it's going to be in your physical store, and therefore it could be in your online store.
Oh, 100%. I mean, that was the whole point of it. We have a full license where we can sell alcohol out of our front kind of tap room. And so the idea was, we're making these products for our partners. Why not give them an opportunity to sell it, out of our space and online. So you could go online now and buy our partner products that want to be on there. It's not mandatory at all. If we just want us to make their product, great. But it's there. And, for those that want to leverage it, it's fantastic. And you can go on there online, buy it. It's free delivery. We'll manage it all for them. And we just did it really as a value add because, when you're starting up or you're trying to do things, just having some product there, if you can sell a few cases every few weeks or whatever, why not, right?
Yeah.
Get your product out there and it just helps them grow. I mean, the more they put into it, the better it will go. They've got to help promote their products on there as well. But yeah, that was the basis behind it. And there's some on there doing a fantastic job. We work with one of our partners, Wilda. It's they make mead. Used to be Royal Canadian Mead.
No way. Okay, I know they rebranded. Okay.
Yeah. So they're called Wilda now. Hope I'm getting that right. And they've kind of rebranded as spritzers, and they're very smart. They've really got their brand down. It looks fantastic. We've been helping them out, and they're lovely people. Really expanding this idea of what mead is, and from a contemporary sense. They've come up with some amazing products that we've helped them with, and they're doing really, really well. And they sell on there, and they do a fantastic job selling stuff through the online shop. And we're really proud and happy to support them. They're lovely people trying to do something interesting, and it's great. It really aligns with where we kind of see the world going.
That's sick, man. Are you you don't have to, but I'm curious, is there any other brands you could shout out that you have been working with on that side because I think it's like
I don't know if they want to tell.
Oh, okay, so that's completely okay, because what I was going to caveat was going to be, I don't know if you remember, because I feel like maybe when you got involved with Junction, it might have been around, there was this kind of like pretty ridiculous bias, I guess, towards and people just shitting on contract breweries. I guess you're laughing because maybe you're familiar with what I'm talking about.
Sure,
yeah.
Absolutely.
It drove me crazy because I have a lot of good friends. Lost Craft, Shahan is one of my good friends, and he has a fantastic business. He has brick and mortar now as well, but he still contracts his major brands because his facility could not pump out what he needs. Yep. He copped it so hard from Ontario. I feel like it was like an Ontario thing. I feel like Quebec had a little bit of a bias, but I feel like Ontario were just like ridiculous to the point where the OCB were making rules that were proactively negative towards contract brewers. So yes. I know that some brewers might not want even sort of that to be out there because of that ridiculous bias, which I was hoping I hadn't heard about it for a while. No one talks about it. Everyone's just mad about smoothie sours now. So I thought they might have been not. I'm not sure if they were mad about that anymore. It was just like it's just such a dumb thing. To me, it just shows like that lack of understanding of just or forgetting that beer is a business and that it has to start somewhere. Not everybody can come in and get a loan of $1 to $2 million to create the facility that they need to. So yeah. Like I imagine this like. Yeah, you don't have to answer that, but yeah, that was.
I'll answer it wholeheartedly. I've got pretty strong opinions on this. For my brief time as a contract brewer, not having the same access to market as a bricks and mortar brewer for really no reason baffled me. To be completely frank, I see interesting, innovative brands and ideas coming from a lot of these contract people, be it they're entrepreneurs, marketers, business people that see an opportunity, and they're coming up with great ideas. And I think for the consumer, that's awesome. Why would we frown on that? To your point, there's still a bias there. On the provincial election that just finished. When was that now?
It was like earlier in the year, if I'm not mistaken.
God, time flies.
Right.
There was Again, I got an email from literally unknown source, generic email, saying that, hey, this would be interesting. And it had some documents from an association that was basically asking them to lobby their government or their MPs to basically go against contract brewers because they were marketers, not breweries, and they shouldn't have access to the same things. And yeah, it was pretty crazy. And
Wow.
and you know, you know, I'll say this: we've worked with a lot of contract brewers over the last 18 months, 24 months. They're great people with great ideas, and a lot of them have aspirations to open their own breweries. And this is a gateway to help them get there in the sense of they can build a brand, they can learn who their customer is, they can learn about what they want to do with their products, and work their way towards having a brewery.
Yeah.
And to me, that makes a lot of sense. And for those that don't want to have aspirations to be a brewery, that's great too. Just if they're creating products that customers love, is that a bad thing? I don't think so. If anything, it makes us all pull up our boots a bit more and say, okay, well, what are they doing? What's going on in the world? We have to continue to innovate or improve what we're doing to compete. And that's not a bad thing either. I think I guess from some conversations I've had, there's people out there in the world in this part of the world that seem to think that the way that the Ontario market should be is, hundreds of brew pubs just servicing the local community. So and you can have a very successful brew pub, especially if you've got a food offering and do that. But you only sell into your local LCBOs. You only sell very local distribution, and that allows you to have lots of these bricks and mortar breweries. That's okay, but the problem is you end up with way more capacity than the consumer can handle in the province, and the cost to do that, and then continue to grow, right? Because a lot of these businesses want to grow, and fair enough, as they should. You end up getting in a spot where you end up having too many and they start to fail and consolidate. And frankly, we're going to see that in the next year or two. You probably heard this yourself, in Ontario alone, there's 450. I think last year we started to see less for the first time in a long time. So call it 440 for something, but I know there's at least 3, 4, maybe 5 breweries opening up in the next 12 months that I know of. And it's a noisy space. It's very, very difficult. It's very competitive. I see opportunity in that, so we're excited, but it makes for a tough space. And I think, I just think it's a bit of a misguided view, and I don't think contract brewing or contract anything is bad. I mean, in the non-alc space, many brands have been contracting to major manufacturers for forever, and most people don't even know.
Yeah.
So from whether it's Coca-Cola in one country where they get someone, they might have a partner that does it, or Nestle, or down to a lot of these brands, they don't have these massive facilities necessarily. I mean, it's not a new thing. And so you can still be a craft brand that creates great craft products that connects with the consumer, be it virtual or bricks and mortar. At the end of the day, a lot of it's coming from a bricks and mortar facility, making hopefully a great product. So anyway, I could go on forever on that one, but it still exists as of a few months ago when I got past that information. And
I can't believe that, bro. I won't press you on it because I feel like you've said enough. Maybe we can talk off air, but that is fucking crazy. I've never heard anything like that. I had heard from people who were, and I can say this publicly because people were there, but at the OCB meeting, there were brewers who were previously contract brewers standing up in front of everybody, proactively lobbying to be like, these tax breaks that we get shouldn't apply to them because we have to pay more money because we have the more staff and more expenses, so they shouldn't get it. But that's how they started. And it seemed like that was a little weird to me. And you made a lot of really great points I was going to touch on as well. There was the I think the brew pub thing where everyone should just focus on the local community. That's fine. There's this purist attitude that always kind of pissed me off. Where people got a few years that we have a Twitter account called Team Lactose because people got so mad about lactose in beer, from milkshake IPAs that were popular around 2017. And I'm just I'd never seen such people having hissy fits about something that people put in a fizzy carbonated malt drink. I couldn't believe that people were that upset about it. And then I keep seeing this puristy thing, and that there's this attitude that that's what it should be. And I'm like, all right, cool, that's no problem. To your point, I've met people in Quebec, and I found Quebec specifically, breweries when I say people, and had them on the podcast. They're like, hey, we don't really want to grow. We just want to stay where we are, maybe slowly, change, but we just want to keep it chill. I'm like, all right, cool. So there's some places that, or some people that proactively don't want to grow. They want,
Yeah.
it's like they've bought themselves a job. They're really happy doing their job. They don't have a boss. They're the boss, but they don't really care about like growth year on year, which is
Yeah.
the heart of capitalism, but not everybody subscribes to that, it seems. And once again, more power to them. Do your thing. Then I got,
Yeah.
you know, the ones that people accuse of being marketing companies. Lostcraft was one of the main ones. They have a brick and mortar now. So, like, I don't know what you really want to say to that. Like, to me, that was a big vindication for him, and for just being like, all these people were shitting on him for years. He was targeting a very, very, and still now, criminally underserved market, being people of color in craft beer. He was from Scarborough, and people would always text me because we sort of came out at the same time he did. So we were sort of aligned early on, and people would always text me, "Hey, I'm at this house party. Like, half the people here are drinking Lost Craft," and that's just because they were targeting an audience that weren't really into craft beer, and then hopefully that created some gateway, like we were talking about before, with what a lot of the stuff that you guys do, bringing them into the scene. There's value in that.
Yeah.
Like you also said, if you want to be a marketing company, if you're a beer nerd and you don't like that, then don't fucking buy it. Who cares? Like, it's not that serious. I don't understand. It's like those commenters on the internet. Like, if they don't like this interview, they'll go and comment about it. Well, just keep scrolling, bro. Like, you don't have to comment about it. It's that kind of thing. It's man. It's weird.
Yeah, I know. You know, you mentioned True History, Matt and Adam. They opened a fantastic facility down on St. Clair now. Definitely go check it out. It's awesome.
Sick.
Such a lovely spot, lovely job with it. And you know, they deserve all the success in the world. They work very hard, and if their business takes off and they want to grow further afield, they shouldn't be, you know, you should be allowed to do that. They should be encouraged to do that through the community, in my opinion.
No,
you know,
I
think
now they are though. They've got the concrete facility that makes all these people happy. So now they're okay.
Well,
now they're validated. But before,
Exactly.
when Junction was brewing their stuff, and while they were building their brand and getting their capital together, that wasn't okay. But now it's okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I'm sorry. Continue. It
No,
pisses me off so much.
I
I think we align very strongly on this. Yeah.
I think that those that lobby for the craft beer industry, I don't know. Maybe there's something I don't know, but it seems a bit misguided to me. You know, I think we would be better served by them lobbying the government to lower the provincial volume tax. You know, those that aren't involved in the brewing world, it's highly taxed both federally and provincially.
Right.
And if they wanted a successful, buoyant craft beer community, when you know, capital costs of equipment have gone up 20, 30, 40%, you know, if we head into a recession, we're going to get squeezed even more so on the top end because people look for more value-based things, you know, save a penny or two, which absolutely makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you know, the government just had to, rather than focusing on a buck of beer or things that get headlines, you know, lowered the volume tax a little bit, which is hefty, it would create, all these breweries would free up a bit more capital to reinvest and grow their breweries and compete. So seems logical to me, but what do I know? But yeah,
just a CEO of a big company. So the interesting thing about that, you make, yeah, right? Well, happy to be home. I was talking to another brewery, and not on the pod, but recently, and they were telling me that the cost, this is kind of a question and a statement, I guess. But they were saying that the cost of, you know, every inflation right now, it's a weird time. Everything's increasing. The cost of their ingredients has gone up, but then the consumer won't really take much of an increase in the price because there's only so much you can do. So therefore they are having their margins like cut down more and more on an already thin situation. And it's making the situation somewhat untenable for them, which is very disheartening to hear. I don't know if you can speak to that at all, or if that's a reality for everybody. It could just be this particular brewery, but yeah.
No, I think that would be across the board, and it sucks, you know, because again, one of the challenges when you're a smaller brewery too, your buying power is very low because your output isn't terribly high. So you're buying a premium per kilogram or whatever of your ingredients. So you've got to pass that on to the customer, and I think, you know, there's only so many $4 plus beers you can sell to kind of keep it going, because at some point the customer is looking for options. And as we go into things, hopefully we don't, but everyone seems to say a recession's coming. And typically, again, if you look back at the data, should be like the more value-based products tend to do well. And I don't mean the mass market beers, but I think if there's opportunities where someone could be like, hey, there's a great beer at $4 and another great craft beer at $3.25 or whatever, maybe I go for the $3.25 one now. And so, but to do it at that price and still have nice, great, hops that cost a lot of money and all these nice ingredients, it's very hard, because you've got your ingredients costs, your labor costs, you've got your excise tax, your volume tax, you've got your cost of distribution. How do you get it to where you're selling? There's all these costs that go into making beer. Again, no different to any other industry, but it's also regulated where you can sell it, how you can sell it. And so it makes it very tough, particularly for smaller breweries. I mean, we have a lot of those same issues, but as we start to get bigger and have a bit more scale, we hope, or we think we can start to kind of, whether it's we can buy more because we're making stuff for us and others, we can have a bit more buying power perhaps, or we can do things to hedge a little better. But that might make it a bit better for us, but it's hard for sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I don't think that the person you were speaking to, they're definitely not alone in that. Absolutely not.
That's unfortunate to hear, but that's kind of what I was assuming it was going to be. Man, that's it's a weird time in the industry. Next beer, I know I kind of prolonged this one. I was just enjoying the crispy. What are we feeling, brother?
Should we do a Woodhouse one?
Yeah, let's do it since we were talking about it.
Do the Nordic Pale Ale. That's one of my current favorites.
Hell yeah!
And then you're gonna grill me on it, and I'm only a couple months in, so I'm gonna do it justice, I'm sure.
Hey, it's okay. Graham will give you a call.
Yeah, exactly.
He'll let you know. So Nordic Pale Ale, my guess without reading it is it's got some Kvike yeast. Yes, it does.
Yeah.
Citric Cashmere and Simcoe hops. Alrighty, all right, let's go.
So we're also very lucky that we, with Woodhouse joining us, and Graham and his team coming over, we also have Vince, who's the Woodhouse brewmaster, and he's now our brewmaster working with Andrew.
Oh, cool.
And he's awesome, lovely guy, fantastic brewer. He's running our brewing team, and it's great to have him on board as well. I don't want to say we have a stacked team, but I'm pretty excited about our guys. And this one in particular, I think is awesome. I love it.
That's dope, man. I'm going to take a photo of it real quick, but I'm excited to try it. Is this a relatively new SKU? Because I don't think I can recognize it from his previous releases.
It is, yeah. It hasn't been in the LCBO that long. Definitely, we're talking months, but it's been doing very well, and the feedback's been great. It's lovely to hear customers' thoughts and see how it's selling through, and it's doing a great job. I think Vince and the team and Graham did a great job on this one. I think the can looks great, and I'm obviously biased, but that's my personal opinion. But we get excited about our products. We'll say that. Yeah.
That's important, man. I always appreciated Graham's aesthetic, where it was very simple and color blocked. I really like color blocked. Where you can go in and
totally. We have good debates on where we go with Junction and Caribou too, which is it's great bringing them on board and having those discussions on going back to earlier, having a portfolio, which is how is it still distinct? So every beer has a place in our total portfolio, but then also has a different brand from whether it's a look and feel or just a different story that might resonate with someone a little bit different, but that we're not making two of the same for every brand. That makes no sense to us. We don't want to do that. So it'll evolve over the coming months to being a brand, a portfolio that's also distinct between all the beers that we put out there. So it's easy for people to understand.
That's great to hear. And I feel like even just looking, I feel like Junction probably, correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like you guys are maybe a little lighter on the hoppier beers, whereas I know that, Graham has, there's an IPA, I think, there's this one, there's a couple of other ones, which would probably make up, he's got the IPA here. Actually, but then you guys have a hazy IPA and you got the session IPA too, so maybe that's probably a bit of a boost.
Yeah, so Woodhouse has the double IPA. You might have had that before, and that's coming back.
Yeah.
It's coming back soon into the LCBO as a seasonal. We've got on the Junction side though, we've got our hazy IPA. So, and we're actually working through we're making kind of a version 2 of that. And Andrew and Vince and the team have gone out and looked for kind of interesting new and up and coming hops, if I could say that.
Okay.
And it's pretty awesome. Yeah. So that'll be out soon with some kind of hop names you don't necessarily see all the time, but still has all the essence of what you would expect in kind of a true kind of hazy IPA kind of product.
Love it. Excited to hear that, man. I guess it's coming up in September, so it's harvest time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Perfect
So
timing.
probably October should be hitting shelves, I guess. Yeah.
Okay.
Mid-October, something like that.
Fantastic. This is great, by the way, dude. So this is like only 5.2, nice and crushable.
Yep.
I don't know if you want to tell me what your thoughts of it, but I'm definitely the Kveikis gives it like a little tropical, little fruity punch in there, a little bit tart. Tons of what you would expect from the hop. Was it Citra Cashmere Simcoe? So it's juicy,
Totally.
mango.
For me, what I love about it, sorry to interrupt you. For me, what I love about it, I guess being a beer drinker, and again, we were talking about it earlier, maybe it's my time in the UK and drinking lower ABV drinks or beers or what have you, or also getting a bit older, is that if I can find something that's really tasty, but also not crazy high on the ABV, that's kind of checking boxes for me. And for me, I love this. I love the hop profile. I love, just the notes that it gives off. And it's just, I can easily have 2, 3, 4 of these, depending on the night. and just, it's just really enjoyable. And I can have a few. And to me, as a beer drinker, I like that. I can have some and enjoy my night. And issue kind of crushing a few, which is great. And I think that's one of the reasons I really enjoy this.
I can see that, man. Yeah, this is like I feel like almost the Kveikis as well give it a bit of longevity. Like it's the use of it is subtle in here because I feel like it was like really popular for a bit and then it kind of got a bit played out. Like I feel like it was everywhere. Like too many beers used it and it wasn't always where it needed to be. So I haven't had one in a little while, not like forever, but just not super recently. And this is just super smooth. Like it's a nice sort of like opaque, kind of more along the lines of a New England East, or at least like a juicy pale ale rather than maybe like that West Coast style. So it works really well with the hops. It's kind of just a little touch of kind of earthy in there to kind of balance it out. So it's not like a juice fest, but tons of flavor. Yeah, man. This sits really well. Once again, the pink can would be popping off. I imagine this is LCBO?
Yes, it is. Absolutely, yeah. Okay. It's been doing well for us. It's great, yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah. Love to hear it. So it's very cool. That partnership, I thought that was it seemed to make sense. I feel like it's happened a little bit recently. Steam Whistle and Bose joined forces, and Graham bringing the brand over to you guys. It seems like now I feel like I got a better understanding even after we've only talked for like an hour and a half here. Just understanding kind of your thinking and where you're coming from and what you're trying to do with it. It's a good look, and I feel like at a time where it's a weird time to be alive, eh? Like everything is changing in front of our eyes, seemingly every day, and this not uncertain future, but who knows the way it's going to go. It's kind of cool to you brought it under the umbrella and being able to keep the brand alive. If maybe it wasn't. The breweries are under a lot of pressure right now, like we were saying, for many reasons, whether it's saturation, cost of ingredients, rents in Toronto, where Graham was on. Is the brew pub still there, or did he?
No, as part of the process we went through, it just didn't make sense for
to keep it right.
Woodhouse. We didn't want 2 facilities, and we see the future of this having one major kind of headquarters, if you will, and getting this out across Ontario. So we didn't need to have both.
Yeah, But I can even just imagine just Toronto rents are just insane.
Of course.
So I
Absolutely,
mean,
yeah.
just even having that would be a lot of stress and pressure. Just having that going. So this is great. Is Graham is still involved in?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
It's been great to get to know him and work with him. He heads our whole sales team now. He's our VP of sales, and he's doing a great job. So he's looking after kind of, I guess we'll call it a portfolio, our portfolio of products. And so he's kind of leading the charge on where we go, and I'm working with Andrew and Vince and the brewing team on where we go with products and things like that in the
Oh,
future.
that's cool.
And yeah, I mean, again, when we talk about synergies, as we went through COVID on the Junction side, I really cut back on our sales team because our partner channel was growing and licensees was closed and things like that. So as we came out of this and we started talking to Woodhouse, they had a fantastic sales team. So again, kind of the stars aligned there. And so now our sales team is essentially the Woodhouse team as well, which is great. So again, there was a lot of synergies there, and everyone's still involved. We're just kind of settling into kind of our joined up world, if you will. But also, the idea was that this will help the Woodhouse brand kind of continue to grow and to take it to that next level, whatever that ends up looking like. So, yeah, I think we'll definitely see more Woodhouse in the future, as well as a lot more Junction as they kind of start to really push that into, sell into places that are excited to have that product for sure.
Love to hear that, man. That's really cool to at least keep him. He's still involved and brought his team on board, so everyone continues, and it's really just like a joining forces type of situation.
Yeah,
to sort of
100%.
Going. Yeah.
Yeah. No, absolutely. That's the only way we would do it, really. And I think, hopefully, as we start to settle in, we'll start to accelerate some of these ideas that we have together, and you'll kind of see that come to fruition in the coming months and into next year.
Love it. I love that, man. That's great. I was curious to touch on something we talked about before, the independent bottle shops, in Ontario, or something that's been a really big advancement in the last couple of years. Has that been a major driving force for you guys as far as revenue and distro, or is it more like you guys are sort of grocery store, LCBO, beer store licensees? Like, just curious, because I can't remember if we were saying it on air or off air, but I love I love the stores. I think it's the coolest thing ever.
Totally. I mean, I would say absolutely. Does it kind of move needles from a business perspective? If we're being honest, it would, but you need a lot of them, right?
Yeah,
a lot of these bottle shops are great, and we will happily support and hopefully provide products they want, that their customers want. But it's they might buy a case or two cases at a time, and so you need a lot of those stores to kind of move the needle if you're starting to become a bigger brewery, and that's just simple math, really. So we'll absolutely we do sell to them, and we love supporting them, and we're kind of fortunate where we've got vans and infrastructure where we can get our products to them. But I don't think it necessarily replaces a bar that's buying kegs. For most breweries, if you have taps and they're buying kegs from you, that tends to be a more profitable kind of endeavor. If you kind of to rank it, the most profitable beer you can sell is in your tap room, right? That's cost per hectoliter, you're rocking if you can sell a lot in your tap room. And then from there, it's kind of licensees, LCBO, kind of work your way down in terms of like the profitability. So, going back to places that can do a good brew pub model in the local community, if they can fill it with people coming for dinner and buying pints, they can make a great go at it, right? And they can be very successful as that kind of brew pub model. The question is, when they get good and they start to grow, what do you do? That's when it starts to get opportunities there, but it's a high cost to kind of get to that point.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense, and you're right. I was even there's a similar thing. I was talking to a brewery in Quebec, and he was telling me there's this one. I guess they're like I guess it's franchise called Teep Fret, and there was like someone started them, and they kind of I think they came from the restaurant world, so some of the beer people aren't really in love with them because of that. But then they started franchising out, so they've got big goals, and they've probably got 30 or 40 stores, maybe even more already. And
cool.
One brewery friend told me that he's like, I could sell to the smaller stores, and exactly kind of what you said: one case here, two cases there, whatever. takes a while to get that kind of small change, but I can go to this bigger store and they'll buy my entire batch. And then now I know that I've got that money, and then I can invest that into my funner projects that I didn't have the funds to do that for previously.
Absolutely.
Because I was chasing 200. Oh, this is, let me just switch that out. The old, I'm going to switch the camera battery out. But yeah, that he couldn't do that for. And I was like, I never really thought of it like that. So when you're saying that with the depths, it's almost like, I always thought the like LCBO beer store kind of thing was like it's like a discovery method. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, but just sort of that's how a lot of breweries would. So maybe you take an L on the margin because obviously LCBO has to take their cut and they buy it at a certain amount and so on and so forth. But it's exposing your brand to exponential number of customers, even though it's a pretty crowded shelf. But if it's a well-curated shelf, then, people are looking and they're picking up cans and so on and so forth. So it is worth taking that loss temporarily for that sort of long-term gain, because maybe people will buy the beer, then they'll be like, oh, wow, this is great. Are they here? Oh, wow, they're in Junction. Cool, let me go down. And they'll come in, they'll visit, and then so on and so forth, and they become more of a loyal customer. So I wonder if maybe there isn't enough time has gone past for the independent stores to have really become that sort of like, full circle kind of thing where maybe people will come into, like we were talking about, I don't know, like say go to Red Church here in Hamilton and they can go and see a couple breweries in there they might not have discovered before. And they'll be like, oh, sweet, that was a cafe. So they'll be like, all right, this brewery's cool. And then all of a sudden now they've been exposed to this product that they can go and investigate further, whether it's buying online or visiting the facility, so on and so forth. Yeah.
No, absolutely. It's funny. It's interesting to see the shift. So to your point, these kind of cool spots that have opened with great bottle shops and offering cool beverages and stuff. To your point, they can, they have a curated section. They can go find beers that they might not necessarily have known about and learn about them and discover that. So there's kind of discoverability aspect.
Yes.
Kind of like if I'm on Spotify and I get some music I didn't know, I can discover it. Same kind of vibe, I guess. Yeah. But they're also finding that in all the beverages, like these same bottle shops, they want non-alcoholic options because their customers are saying, hey, I want something cool that's non-alc.
Right.
And they're like, oh, we've got a cool non-alcoholic beer that's really good. Or I've got this cool, whatever flavor water that just is awesome. And so going back to what we talked about earlier, these places, these bottle shops of sorts, are really helping foster this whole idea of that craft experience across the beverage scene, because they're looking for the cool versions of the mainstream products that they can put into their stores, which I think is really interesting and exciting because it's giving smaller brands an opportunity to get in front of customers, which they didn't have pre-COVID. Kind of cool. On the LCBO side, though, what's interesting, you said, you talked about discoverability. Absolutely true. But what the data would typically show, though, is the average beer buy is they would go in and they would go and say, okay, I'm going to get 6 or whatever of the beer I like, or I know that I can have, I know what I'm getting, and then I'm going to augment it with a couple things.
Right. So they're not buying crazy on the other side, but there's maybe a potential for that.
Yeah, they're still picking and choosing because they're finding cool cans they like or things they haven't used or tried before. But they're still going to put the 6-pack or pick 6 beers or whatever of the one they know, kind of like as the staple, which is interesting. And case in point, if I look at our own bodega sales where we offer our partner products, people will come in and say, even Junction customers or Woodhouse customers now, and they might buy a case or a 6 or 12 of, say, Junction products or Woodhouse products they know, and then they'll go into the bodega and add a few fun ones that they haven't tried. Right. So it actually that similar use case kind of rings true in our scenario as well, which is interesting. And so I think, when I look, there's still an opportunity to sell a lot through the LCBO as you build up that base. But again, it also comes down to the style of beers. Again, if you look at the data, it's the lagers and kind of the non-crazy IPAs are the lion's share. You know, if you look at sours, I enjoy a good sour, but it's what 4% of the craft beer sales. You know, like it's not a, you know, we're talking single digit market share. Still a lot in the grand scheme of things, but if you've got, you know, hundreds of products kind of attacking that space,
Oh, for
it's
4%.
hard to kind of hard to grow in that, if that makes sense.
Never thought of it like that. That makes a lot of sense for sure. So it sounds like the independent stores are kind of like, it's like it's dribbling in stuff, but it's maybe not a needle mover as such.
Well, I mean, and again, you know, for us, I mean, and again, maybe because I'm very operational, you know, I love stores like that. Like as I said, my wife owns a cafe that has a bottle shop and loves to find those interesting experiences, and I like it too because she'll be like, "Hey, look what I got! This is awesome," and we'll try it. And we enjoy that. That's and so I love that experience myself. But you know, they're a coffee shop and they sell lots of things. And while alcohol now is a good revenue generator for her business, be it wine or beer or what have you, you know, it's not like going to the bar on a Friday night and they're pouring pints of whatever beer, right? So and for a brewery, if you can sell kegs into high volume bars, for example, and every week they're ordering a bunch of kegs from you, that's a good licensee and revenue, you know, kind of revenue customer for you for sure.
Mm. No, that makes sense. That makes sense. So it's sort of like kind of come back to what you're saying earlier about this diversifying in general. Like it's almost like worth trying a bit of everything as a beer business, whether you're contracting or bricks and mortar,
Mhm.
and then seeing what works, and then maybe leaning into the to other ones, and maybe some things will, some things won't convert. But it's sort of in a market that is getting progressively more saturated. Maybe it is worth getting even if it is a matter of a case at a time in these smaller stores, it could
Yeah.
start to result. You know, at the end, I guess you got to. It's almost like you attack it one drinker at a time, and
Oh,
slowly
for
convert them.
for
You know?
sure. Yeah. Like to your point, if I was a new brand starting up, a new brewery, you know, those kind of places would be great. You know, like if I could get into these places that are cool, that are known for having cool brands or finding interesting brands, and people seek that out, that's kind of where I want to be, right?
Mm,
Because that's kind of where you, and then you start to build that following where they hopefully enjoy it and they talk about it, they post it. You mentioned you do a lot of social media business. You know what this is like. They talk about it, they post about it. That's what you want. You want to get that, you know, that flywheel kind of effect. Whereas it's, you know, people start talking about it and it starts to grow and grow and grow, and that's critical for any young brand. So yeah, I think there's definitely good value there for sure. Yeah.
mm. Yeah, no, you're right. I have a friend in Montreal who runs Depanneur, and he said he's like sometimes when the breweries drop off, you know, he buys the beer. They don't always drop off samples, and he was like, the thing about that is that it's not that he wants the beer. He's like, I need my staff to try the beer, so when a consumer comes in, they can intelligently and accurately talk to them about the product. Um,
Yeah.
Even Chris from Durand here in Hamilton was saying to me, he said with the wineries, obviously it's very different. You know, you go to can of beer, it's a matter of a couple of bucks or maybe $3, $4, $5. You're talking a bottle of wine that they need to give you a tasting of. It's a different thing. So he said the wineries don't often do it. So it's like it's difficult for their staff to be able to sell those products without being exposed to them. So there's
Yeah.
also that thing. So it's almost like the brewery business needs to romance, you know, not necessarily, but you know what I mean? Like really make sure that the people who are selling their products understand it, and then that allows them to therefore, excuse me, sell to their end drinker. Um, so it's almost like it takes it out of your hands. Whereas if they come to the Junction Tap Room, you have control over that experience. So it's like if you don't treat the point of sale correctly, whether that's LCBO, beer store, or independent, um, they might not be able to express that to a consumer. You know what I mean? I imagine that's probably a challenge for everybody.
But it's funny because, you know, we've talked a bit about the kind of the bottle shops now here, but you also make a good point. A lot of these places, because they're trying to get these curated experiences that are not the LCBO, and or kind of the more mainstream grocery spots, for example. They're trying to curate and come up with interesting products, and the team is also excited about it because this is kind of part of that store's experience. So they really want to understand it and really get behind it as well. So the level of knowledge share and education they want on these products is much higher than say if you're selling. Again, not that the grocery store doesn't want to know these things, but they're looking at the operational side. How do you get it to 50 stores? It's going to go on these shelves in our planogram, and obviously they want to be educated on it if someone asks. But it's along with 1,000 other products. I mean, it's a different kind of conversation.
Yeah.
The small bottle shop, bar, cafe that's got this curated section that they're very proud of and get really behind. They want to know all about it. So when a customer asks, "Oh, this is great. We chose it for these reasons because we think it's really good." And so, yeah, I agree with you that that's a very interesting point, actually, that it's kind of evolving now as these stores do that. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just multiple people are responsible for sort of how the brand is explained and sort of introduced to somebody. And you know what it's like, first impressions are kind of key. So if if the person at the store couldn't really explain it to you properly, it depends what kind of drinker you are. You like rolling the dice type of person. You're like, I like the can. I'm gonna give that a crack. Or you're like, I don't know now. I'm gonna go to my safe one. So there's different people, and it's sort of therefore that impacts your brand when you're sort of leaving that in the hands of somebody else who may not have been equipped to sort of speak to it. So there's a whole bunch of challenges. I guess the point of this is a bunch of challenges that are facing craft breweries right now that are quite interesting. I feel like that might even be a kind of a good segue. Something that we'll be jumping into in a sec. I feel like you know where I'm going with this. Is the and you said you had some thoughts on this, and I'm fascinated to hear what you think. Other segments have been attacking craft beer over the last little bit. Whether it be seltzers or RTDs. Fun fact, and you of all people, being that you were from England originally and you've been around Australia and things like that, you would have seen RTDs or ready to drink products. We grew up with that in Australia. We were drinking like pre-mixed, Jim Beam and Coke when we were 15 type of thing. Like it was all the rage in Australia. I imagine it was pretty similar in the UK. So to see I imagine you would probably be as tripped out as I am that RTDs are just coming out here and people are losing their minds. Like, this is so convenient. I'm like, bro, we've been doing this for more than half my life. Like, where were you? What happened in North America? I don't understand.
Absolutely.
I just don't get it.
No, you're bang on. When I tell people I go into Marks and Spencer's in London and they'd have like a plastic wine glass full of white wine or red wine with the foil cover, and at lunch people grab a sandwich and a plastic glass of wine and go sit in the park and have a glass of wine and a sandwich. They thought that was crazy. But yeah,
that's amazing.
So that kind of but to your point though, it's just a different culture.
Yeah.
Europe, even Australia, around drinking, and living in England, I guess we had it here even in the 90s. The Mike's Hard Lemonade but they were very sugary, very
good point. But it's like one. It's not like a segment as much.
Alka Pops or something. I can't remember what they call them. Maybe
was it Poppers or the Oh, you mean in England?
I think that's a canister you would.
Well, that's a different thing altogether. That's a whole other. That's a different segment.
London walk up on a Sunday. They're all over the road.
Yeah, you get the little nitrous oxide. Yeah, you know the vibes. The ones here. There's the cans called Poppers. What's the other one? There's Mike Hard's Lemonade. The Stollies, the Stolichnaya, like we used to have them in Australia, like the lemon flavored vodka thing. Even before I drank beer, I was drinking those bad boys. But even just like whatever brand, like they had, like I don't know if they had that in England. There's a bourbon called Sam Cougar. So they had Cougar and Coke because it was cheaper than Beam and Coke. But you get the white label Jim Beam and Coke with, or you get the black label, which was 8%, but the white was 5%. So you could go and like that was what we were drinking when we were absolutely underage and had no business doing it. But it was the most. You're gonna get a $30 bottle of Jim Beam, and then you're like everyone at the party's like, oh, pour me one. But if you just came there with 3 cans for the night, no one bothered you. So it was like convenience thing. I don't want to have to sit there and mix it. Anyone bring in a bottle and mixing it, you're like, oh man, you're doing work.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
yeah.
I think, excuse me, we used to do, I used to go to parties, what is it? They had a garbage can. They put the Kool-Aid powder mix in, vodka, soda, and you'd have like just a big mix of this Kool-Aid vodka. There was a name for it.
Wow.
I'm sure someone listening would know. I mean, honestly, it was just ridiculous, but yeah, that's
that's very ridiculous.
I mean, I think England. I think it was called Hooch, which is just a terrible name.
Yeah, it's like
but it was the same kind of thing, right? So you had these very sweet. I think they were called Alka-Pop. Someone would probably correct us, or correct me, but it's they were always kind of off over here, like they weren't, they obviously sold very well. Like Mike's Hard Lemonade did extremely well, but there was no real connection to the beer category. It was very separate, like you're.
Right.
I think, at least
no, that's
my
fair.
time.
I very much agree with that. No, it wasn't even like I don't know beer drinkers who would proactively drink those type of. They would drink liquor in a serious way because beer drinkers are serious. Well, the type of people like you and I may be a bit more serious about that, so they would drink their liquor neat and they would have Pappy Van Winkle and shit like that, like serious stuff, as opposed to these premixes that were. It hasn't been aligned with beer in any shape or form. I think until I would argue until seltzers, because breweries started making seltzers, and then RTDs arguably were a separate thing, and now it's starting to kind of blend into this kind of like, because these like craft spirit makers are doing RTDs, so then the craft spirit makers gave RTDs the kind of credibility that made it maybe acceptable. Like, Dylan's Gin doing their ones and stuff like that, started doing it, and people are like, okay, and they go from there.
Yeah, no, for sure. Well, I mean, I think White Claw really started the trend, right? Which is funny because they were also Mike's Hard Lemonade, and then the Mark Anthony group or whatever. Genius is obviously, hey, let's come up with this clear that's
artificially flavored.
It's malt based or whatever in the States, and let's come up with a clear liquid that's in a can, White Claw, and then the university scene took it up with that. Was it no laws with the claws or whatever the saying was, and it just
that's awesome.
Skyrocketed. I mean, literally overnight, just blew up. And then when they came to Canada, because of taxation, they switched it from malt to being like spirit. So it's I guess it's vodka based or whatever, neutral grain spirit, I guess. And obviously huge. But obviously a lot of people are like, hey, what's going on here? And I don't know the history, whether there was other brands locally, like the Nudes and the Socialites at the time that were on the same wavelength, and it was just in parallel or after, I don't know. But around the same time, I guess we'll say that, they all kind of just took off. And I think it was combined with the idea that, people are looking again for those different experiences. There's been a movement, I think even in the LCBO, they've been on this kind of track of like this kind of healthier for you, which is kind of funny when all they do is sell alcohol. Yeah. But like it's this idea of it's a healthier for you products. And of course, always, if you read the news, they're, consume less alcohol and all these things. So what marketers do best is they create products that go for that message. So they come out with sleek cans and clear liquid and, a little bit less alcohol, and a lot of these seltzers, which are great and they've done incredibly well, are, they're very simple. They're they've got their spirit, they're diluted, they're carbonated, and they have flavoring, which mostly is extracts and things like that, which for those that don't know, is nothing wrong with them. It says natural flavors on the can or whatever. They're typically ethanol based, but they're manufactured to be super concentrated. So you just put a little bit of, you don't need much to create a lot of flavor. It's used in beer all the time as well, sometimes to really get that crazy, you're like, how did they do that? That's incredible flavor, smell. And, that's how you can do it sometimes and that's where brewers become very creative and do interesting things sometimes. But a lot of that was used to get, how did they get so much taste and flavor into a clear liquid? That's how they do it. But people resonated with it because there was a perception, even though I think the White Claw is 5%, is that, so it's the same as any beer at 5%, that it was healthier. Maybe it's a few less calories, but this presumption that it's still healthier. It's still 5% alcohol. You're still having to, have a few. You're going to probably have a happy time, but it just kind of took off as this kind of alternative to beer, and young people who might have been drinking beer were starting to drink this, and it started to really take off. And I think at the time, I think a lot of people thought it was a fad. I mean, I don't know if you've had others talk about this on your podcast or not, but I remember, a year ago, 18 months ago, people were like, I don't know, is it just a thing? Is it just kind of a fad where people realize it's not much to it? But it's really here to stay. And because, again, I think you're starting to see people innovate and do interesting things and find ways to make it interesting for a customer. And I think on top of that, this continual message of lower alc or healthier versions of alcoholic drinks, so less calories and so on, is really starting to resonate with a wider audience. And so it's kind of pushing more people towards that product. Graham and I talk about this a lot, actually. He made an interesting observation the other day. He was hanging out. I don't know where he was. There was a bunch of people there, and mostly, I think it was mostly guys or whatever. They would typically drink beer, and some of them were like, banging back RTDs. And he was like, that's an interesting insight, because normally you'd think they'd be having a beer, but they're drinking these kind of RTDs. Mm. And I think for them, I don't know what the reason was, but it's starting to get a much more mass appeal, whether we like it or not in the beer community. So and then you've got the combined factor of the distribution channels are waking up to the fact that the sales are ridiculously high on these types of products. Mm-hmm. So the LCBO, for example, is like, hey, this is now real. Okay, we only have a certain amount of shelf space in our facilities, in our stores. We got to do something. So guess what, craft beer? You're getting squished because we need more space for RTDs, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. And so you've got all these different dynamics going on, which again put pressure on craft breweries, because in this case, RTDs are doing very, very well. And so it's driving that. And fair play to the LCBO. They're seeing opportunity. They're listening to their customers, and they're trying to find. They want to have a selection. I think, we all know, at least in Ontario, the LCBO is the biggest purchaser of alcohol in the world, and even though it's a government-run organization, they actually do quite well. The selection is quite good. Like I can walk into a store and pretty much get anything I want, and fair play to them. They've kind of developed that, and at least when it comes to craft products or local products, they definitely have a mandate of trying to create a very interesting selection of products, and I think they do that pretty well. Mm. And so, but as RTDs are getting bigger, they got to find space. So it's kind of craft beer is getting a bit of a push in favor of craft, in favor of RTDs now, which is it's interesting on many fronts. But that's kind of the way the world's going right now for those reasons.
Agreed. It's interesting you mentioned that Graham noticed that the last summer and this summer in Montreal, well, before we came here, we walk through the park. We live right next to Montreal, like the mountain. So we'd walk.
Yeah, nice. Beautiful.
Near the, it's a beautiful spot. We'd walk through the park, dead ass. Basically, every single group of people were drinking seltzers. They would come through with like a 12-pack of seltzers specifically. Didn't matter the gender, the makeup of the people. They would it would be like 90-something% of people would be having seltzers. It was to the point where I was like, this is crazy. And I agree with you that with the observation that it's kind of here to stay. It was like really kind of wild to us. So I've seen a lot of it. So I feel like it started with seltzers and then it's moved to RTDs. I don't know if you agree with that, but I feel like I saw this, at least look in the context, of beer, that the beer world were exposed to seltzers. White Claw, I think maybe some different breweries were like, oh, hang on, we can make this. Yeah. And they realized that it was under their jurisdiction and making it from a malt base. They were able to do it. Someone like Willowbold here in Ontario were able to do a great job and make really interesting products with a craft beer ethos. I don't know if they, you know what I mean? And obviously they're available in Red Church, which is super cool because it's like a fun product. So to see what you guys are doing, so you guys have introduced and pulling these bad boys out. Oh man, it's cool. It's keeping these bad boys cold. I love it. This is just my first podcast back in this new set, right? So I'm just like always worried about the beers being cold. I'm never used to this. This is awesome. So you got, is it 3 flavors? This is basically the main range right now?
Yeah. So
Yeah, talk
again,
us through them.
so the idea was simple. I mean, we've kind of talked about the reasons why we might look at that. Again, because we also make lots of products for other people, be it beer or otherwise, we also have the ability to make spirit-based products for ourselves.
Gotcha.
So, we wanted to, what would our junction version of this look like? So we brought out a product very recently. These three products here. We really want this. I mean, we're very proud of these, and I'll explain why in a second. But we also want it to be a kind of a feedback loop where let's get it out there and see what our customers tell us they like or don't like, and really learn from them. And our goal is to kind of take that learning and really evolve that so that by next year, as we do the next, we'll do some batches and iterations between now and then. That as we get into spring next year, where it gets really busy for these types of products, we've got something that we're very, we think is very strong for where we want to go with it. So, but these products here, we sat down and said, okay, we tried a bunch, and myself and Sarah, our marketing person, and Jesse and Andrew, and so when we sat down and said, what's going on in the world? Seltzers, and they're very clear. A lot of these extracts, can we still make a version that hits those points, such as it's lower sugar, lower calorie, and all these things that some people are kind of gravitate to. But let's use real fruit juice. Let's use real flavoring,
Really?
and things like that. So and let's also have some color. Let's have some fun with it and see what people think.
Sick.
And again, I don't think we're rewriting the rule book or anything, but we just want to have some fun with it. And so we kind of we dug deep into our '90s vibes, and we kind of came up with 3 flavors to get feedback on from our customers, and we kind of went with that. And so now we've got these 3 flavors. There's Twisted Citrus, which is kind of an orangey kind of citrusy vibe. We've got the red one, which is kind of a party punch. So it's all real fruit juice that we work with one of our suppliers, which is awesome. That helped us get that. And then we've got one that if anyone who maybe grew up in the '90s a bit, you might understand this Blue Fizz, which is basically like having one of those blue freezies. And I would say we did this on purpose, but it wasn't that good. But the color of the can is almost identical to the color of the liquid, which is awesome.
I kind of feel like this is the one I'm going to have to crack. Are you going to crack one?
Yeah. So that's definitely the most fun. It's like having a blue freezy for when you're a kid.
I'm with it because I didn't grow up here. I don't know if we had the same types of freezies.
Oh yeah, maybe you didn't. Yeah, maybe you didn't. I don't know.
So,
but it's
I don't know if we did.
Yeah,
we'll
so
find out.
They're the alcohol's not too crazy on them.
No, it's 4%.
Yeah, so you can definitely have a few. It's vodka based, so it's like having you might mix your own vodka at home or something like that. Yeah, it's great. They're good fun, and we're just see what people think, and we're going to evolve it based on that. We think it's going to be a good product line for us as we go forward. One of the things that we're interested in, you might have an opinion on this as well, is we talk about this a lot, is Junction Brewery, in the sense of a brewery, do people resonate when we have vodka soda cans? Maybe we do a whole other brand, and that's something we're trying to understand and get feedback. But there you go. Look at that.
Look at that blue, mate. Woo!
Blue freezy in a can.
That's so sick. Like, that's crazy. That is electric blue. I love it. I just want to point out that this is 90 calories. The other two are 100 calories. This is 2 grams of sugar. There's 4 and then 5. So very low. Exactly what you're talking about here with low ABV, basically hitting that mark that people are looking for. It got the sexy sleek can with the very bright popping colors, very 90s like you said, along with just low calories, which is kind of what people are after.
Yeah, I think so. I hope so. Yeah, and it's that's the fun one. We'll see what you think.
That's fascinating. It's like it's super light. I don't think I've had the blue freezy. I think that is my cultural disconnect, just because I haven't been around. But
that's okay.
I can taste what we would call them an icy pole in Australia.
They're in the plastic thing. They're like a long.
Yeah, so those would be. There was like a brand of those that specifically we rocked with, and I can't remember if there was a blue one. I'm way too old, but I can absolutely taste this as being that, like, I can see exactly what you've gone for here. with that. I mean, like this is fascinating, bro. And when did these
Yeah.
launch? These must be pretty new, eh?
Brand new. So
Brand
we've
new.
actually officially launched in the last week or so.
Oh
You know,
wow.
obviously, we were trying for the summer, and then we had to get our licenses, and then with the Woodhouse thing going on, we're very busy, and everything was gone. So it's coming out now, but it's again, you know, we just want to get it in the hands of people and tell us what they like and don't like, and we're gonna listen to them and kind of evolve it so that by next spring we've got something where we think is bang on. But we're very proud of the three,
Yeah.
and we're very confident in the idea that we want to use real juice, real fruit juice. You know, when you say this, you know, you mentioned the grams of sugar, that's from the actual fruit juice. It's not. That's where it comes from. So, you know,
That's so cool.
and so we wanted to be kind of focused on that and have a bit of fun with it and just see what people think.
Yeah,
You know,
man.
the feedback so far has been awesome, actually,
I'm
and
not surprised.
it's been very great. So yeah, we'll see what happens.
It's very cool. Is this going to be LCBO as well, or is this like
That's
direct
a
for
good
now?
question. That's a good question. So traditionally, with the LCBO with these RTDs, again, they get hundreds of submissions for every call they do,
I
and
bet.
their sales targets are incredibly high. So you see a lot of the brands where they're major brands that are doing very well, which is awesome. But to get startup brands in there, that's been very difficult.
Gotcha.
And so there has been some discussion around they might be having kind of a craft version or a call to get some of these brands, startup brands in there like this. Excuse me, but we'll see. I mean, that would be great. You know, one of the things we're also doing is we're selling this in is what do bars and restaurants think? Is this something they want? Do they want a canned vodka flavored product, or you know, like you might buy a beer, or you know, do they just want to do vodka soda off the rail? You know,
Mm,
so we're learning we're learning from them what makes sense for their businesses in terms of the product, because maybe you know maybe this only works very well in certain markets. And if that's the case, then the LCBO becomes one of your main distribution channels. So then, you know, if you have an opportunity to get in there, then fantastic. So we're trying to figure this all out. We believe in it. There's companies doing a fantastic job in that, but you know, for craft breweries or craft businesses, if I could say that, kind of going into this space, there's still a lot of unknowns as we try to figure it out.
yeah, that makes sense. I feel like there's
Yeah.
like a lot of potential for this. Like even clubs could be interested
Yes.
in something like this, like something that you
Mhm.
never would have even thought of, like some place that, like you said, that would have like the rails or whatever that
Yeah.
people don't, you know, if you think, I don't know, I imagine you are probably like me and haven't gone clubbing for quite some time, and I remember back in the day, even then, I would probably, before I drank beer, I would drink like the Stoli. Did you have them here? Like the Stoli? We call them Stolis, like Stolichny or vodka in these little clear
Yeah. I think
bottles that were.
there's Smirnoff Ice. Smirnoff Ice, was that the same thing?
I
It was
think
like a
that was
bottle of
the,
Smirnoff.
yeah, it was the older version of that, and it was like
Oh,
lemon flavored or whatever. So like the
right,
last
right.
thing I wanted, and I was like real soft. I didn't. Was never a big drinker until I discovered beer. Um,
Yeah.
I enjoyed it because it was kind of light and fruity, and it was in a bottle.
Yeah.
Where if someone bumped you on a dance floor, if you had like a bourbon and coke, you've got this
Yeah. Yeah.
open glass that's just going to spill everywhere as soon as someone hits you. Whereas like you've got
Yeah.
this bottle, it was fine. So if people have a can of this stuff and they're able to be on a dance floor at a rave or at a party, whatever it might be, it's you know, making life a little bit easier for them. The cans are pretty and colorful, so it stands out. Like I can see it
Yeah.
working in those venues where maybe the beer products aren't as in. I mean, I imagine like a pilsner and stuff could probably work with that crowd, but you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's
This is
just a whole
great. We're
different
gonna hit
avenue.
up every.
Every club in Toronto, Waterloo, every
Yeah.
university town in Hamilton,
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
you know we're both out here. McMaster must have some stuff. Um,
Yeah.
the LCBO near, funnily enough, we were at, there's one in like Dundas, right by Ancaster, where the McMaster is, and we went there. We were at Grain and Grit the other
Yes.
day. We went to Grain and
Yeah.
Grit just for a quick beer. I went to the
Yeah.
supermarket, and my girlfriend was like, "Oh, I just want to go to LCBO. Let's just Google one." Oh, okay, cool. It's around the corner. We went there. I waited in the car with the dog, and she was just like, "I've never been in a place where everyone was 20 before." She was like, like this was weird because it was around the corner." And that just kind of got me thinking, those individuals, their drinking habits would be completely different to maybe some of the beer people, and perhaps these reasonably priced crushable, like to get a 12-pack and split them between, they're not going to buy 4 of them, they'll buy 12 of them.
Sure.
And, you know what I mean? They'll split them with a friend or something like that. I just feel like it could be that type of crowd who would be, that's one of the other angles. Or, I could maybe even like a craft beer bar where sometimes you bring a friend and they just don't want beer. They might not want wine, but if you've got something like this on offer where it's not like a mixed drink from a bartender, but it's just this like convenient can that they enjoy, they can pour it out or drink it from the can. Yeah, I feel like there's a lot that you guys could do with this. That's worth exploring.
I think so. Yeah, I agree. No, that's great. I agree. And we're just trying to figure it out, and be honest with ourselves and trying to understand where the market is, of what we think we can do with it, and just learn from that. So we get a product that, really we think attacks the market's needs by next year. So that's kind of our plan with it. Yeah.
Love to hear it. You mentioned earlier about craft beer and the growth of the market. I just wanted to hear your thoughts on it. Like, is craft beer growing? Is it slowing down? You did mention briefly that RTDs/seltzers are, taking a bit of the market share there. What do you? What are your thoughts? What's that looking like? Excuse me, right now.
Yeah. So what's interesting is if you look at LCBO data, craft beer sales are down year over year significantly, and I think that's for twofold. One, I think RTDs have taken some of that oomph out of the market. I think the big guys, the big multinationals, are also getting better at attacking that same craft customer. Rebranded cans, products, and advertising that kind of really resonates with them. Like I go to bars and there's a lot more Bud Light drinking than I've seen in a long time at quote unquote cool bars. That like it's they're making headway into that craft market that's really took the wind out of their sails over the last decade or so. So you've got all these factors coming in that's going to make it hard for craft to grow. And then on top of that, you've got a very noisy market where there's always more breweries opening that are adding more products into the market. And we're probably at a point now where there's more in the craft beer space, tank capacity than we can actually consume. And overlay that with tough import-export between provinces to the States, it makes it difficult for brands to grow. So craft beer is in a tough spot. Coming out of COVID, many are financially strained, noisy space, pressures on all ends from equipment and ingredients to price pressure to new product categories. So I think we probably got a couple years of, as a generalization, of tough craft beer years ahead, if to be completely frank with you. It doesn't mean there's opportunity or that brands won't succeed. They absolutely will, I think. But it's being creative. It's having access to finances. It's all those kind of things that we started the conversation with around sophistication in the beer space and the ability to evolve and address challenges that appear in the market. And I think those that find ways to do that, whatever that is, will probably have a pretty good go through this process, no matter what size they are. And I think so, but unfortunately, I think it's going to be also tough for others, I'm afraid. But I don't think this is a precedent. I think if we look back at times in the market, it's happened before in various degrees. Whether there was in the past where breweries have gone and eaten up others, or there's been overcapacity in a market and things have changed. There's been in the beer space, these things have happened before in their own ways, and this is just our way now. And I think, the US, I think, was a number of years ago saturated with craft breweries, and it went through a consolidation period, for example. We're probably in that phase now, I think, it would be my take. So not to be doom and gloom. I think there'll be great breweries that succeed and lots of great products still. I don't want to be too doom and gloom, but I think that's an unfortunate truth of where we're at. Yeah.
Are you concerned?
I'm not. I think we've done our hard work in the last couple of years on the back end to put us in a good position. And I think partnering with Woodhouse and being in a position where we can grow and see opportunity to continue to grow our business, I think we're positioned very well. I think there's always going to be a craft beer market. and I think we can hopefully create products that consumers want and continue to grow our business there. But I think we will go through a time of where it's going to be difficult, and that sucks because the craft beer space is very community based.
Yeah.
It is a very kind of cool space to be in with lots of lovely people that love doing what they're doing, and I hope I'm wrong in all this, but the factors would say it might be a bit difficult over the, put it this way, the Bose steam whistle deal or us working with Woodhouse or whatever. These aren't the last to happen in the next little while. And I know there's a lot of I know more than a handful of breweries that are currently up for sale. So I think it's going to be an interesting year or two for sure.
Okay, but overall positive. It just might be a bit of a little rocky path in the short term.
Yeah, but again, I think for those that create great products that the consumers love, they will do fantastic. And I think we shouldn't, not that you or I do, but we shouldn't frown on breweries that try to innovate and come up with new products, be it interesting seltzers or a contract brewer that comes up with a great idea. If that's how they create these businesses that end up being successful because they create products for the consumer, that's a great thing.
Yeah.
And I think we will have more of that, but maybe it's slightly different than what it is now. Who knows? But yeah, I think it's going to be an interesting couple of years for sure. But I think there's always going to be a very buoyant and very healthy craft beer industry in some form because of the way it's set up and organized. And yeah, so I think it'll be great regardless, but I think it's going to look a bit different in a couple of years.
Okay, that's really interesting. It's going to be a something to watch and to see how it all goes.
I agree with you.
This is fascinating. So I want to round everything out with the it's sort of like the 11th anniversary, but it's kind of redoing the 10th because there wasn't really an opportunity to celebrate the 10th last year.
Yeah.
Do you want to maybe talk us through what's happening in the next few weeks or months as far as the celebrations?
Yeah, so it's kind of our 10th plus one, I guess. We wanted to do something to celebrate 10 years, as you do.
Yes.
And again, we wanted to do something kind of light touch, but have a bit of fun. So for the entire month, we've got lots of things going on at the breweries, at the brewery, from lots of different programming and different events happening. And at junctioncraft.com, you get the whole lay of what's going on every week. We've got little chips actually all hidden around the Junction community. And if you find one, you can bring it in for a free drink, which is pretty cool.
Nice.
And we're just having a bit of fun like that. We're just trying to have a bit of fun with it. We're doing a lot of giveaways. You can nominate a charity that you're passionate about. We're going to give some money away through the Caribou Foundation at the end of the month that we're raising money for. And yeah, we're just really having some fun around celebrating our community and the beer and just what we've been up to for the last little while. And yeah, just hopefully bring in some people and hopefully they can have a nice time with us as well. That's
really cool, man. It's cool to see, like you guys are making up for the lack of ability, of bringing people together to celebrate a milestone. I feel like there's been a whole bunch of things. Like I turned 40 last year. I didn't do shit. And there's nothing you can do because you couldn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
You couldn't do anything, So it's one... You know what I mean? So I when I saw that, I thought that was a really cool way to do that for the business, to kind of make sure that you're sort of like positioning. Yeah, it's not that. It's 10 plus 1. I thought that was really clever and just like a way to, keep that sort of exciting, the spirit alive with like celebrating a milestone. Craft beer is a relatively young industry, and not that many hit that milestone of 10 years. Let's be real. Like it's a tough one to make it that long. So
yeah.
I feel like it is worth celebrating. I thought that was really cool.
We agree.
Yeah. So people should definitely get down to the brewery in Junction and check it out. Your products are obviously available in many LCBOs, beer stores, grocery, independent stores, everywhere. This will drop probably a week or two from when we're recording. When are the RTDs? Are they available for people immediately, or are they coming soon?
Yeah, available now.
Available now.
You can get them online or at a tap room.
Love to see it. Stuart, this has been awesome, man. Like, I really enjoyed this conversation. I knew it was going to be great. Thank you so much for your insight and perspective on everything. I really appreciate it. I think that it's fascinating what you guys are doing. I think it's really great. I think it's undervalued what you're contributing to craft beer and helping
Thank you.
helping breweries grow. Updating a brand that's been around for a decade plus. And continuing to innovate and to offer drinkers a fantastic space and and just quality products consistently that are really thoughtful and catered to a wider audience. I think it's brilliant, bro. Congratulations on everything.
Awesome, man. That's very kind. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. This has been fun.
Genuine pleasure. Where can everybody find Junction online?
Yeah, so you can get us at junctioncraft.com or woodhousebrewing.com are the two main sites, and you can get us online there, or it'll point you in the direction to where you can find the products near you.
Love to see it. Also, I think on social, I think it's either Junction Craft or it's Junction Brewery. Maybe it's Junction Craft across the board.
Junction Craft or Woodhouse
Perfect.
Brewing. Yeah.
Love to see it. I'm going to take a screenshot of this for the thumbnail. Do you want to hold up some of the cans?
Yeah,
I'll
sure.
try and see if I can get 3 of these bad boys in. I can do it. It's been a while. I feel confident though. Here we go. Come on. You got this. Come on. All right. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do that. There we go. Oh shit! That looks
Nice.
That looks terrible. That's horrendous. Do you know what it is? It's 'cause I'm using my opposite finger. I'm all new here, so I don't know what the hell is going on. Here we go.
That's all
I
right.
can go like that. There we go. But this doesn't
There you
feel
go.
right either. It's been so long, bro. Like 2 months. I'm just like, don't understand what I'm doing. It's okay. The people are used to it. Here we go. They can probably hold up just so they can see it.
Oh, perfect.
All right. Yeah, 1, 2, 4. There we go. All right. Ready?
Yep.
Beautiful. Stick around. I'm just going to wrap this up, and then we'll finish up offline now. Thanks again,
Awesome,
bro.
man.
Really appreciate you.
That's awesome. Thank you. Same.
Genuine pleasure. Everybody, thank you for watching. Happy to be back after a solid couple months off. Hope you guys got to catch up on all the older episodes. We kind of like pumped them out for a bit, so we gave you guys some time to get back up on it. We'll be back consistently now. If you guys enjoyed the episode, please smash the thumbs up. Hit subscribe below, hit the notification bell so you know when the new videos drop. Follow us everywhere on social media at BAOS Podcast. And check out the long form audio, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. We are available everywhere. Check that out. We'll be back next week. We'll see you then, guys. Cheers.
See ya.